I kept seeing it.
It's right by, right next to you, right there. No idea what's happening. Is there data center coming? I don't know. If all the supervisors could start checking in on their remotes, please.
So anyway, we're going around.
Those are my favorite pens.
See, that's all yours.
Sketchy.
What's the second pack? I'll take it.
All right, we are at 6 o'clock. I'll call this May County Board meeting to order. If everyone could please join me in a pledge of allegiance, moment of silence, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, we will move on to roll call. I'll show we have 20 of 21 supervisors present. We have a quorum. Move on to approval of agenda. I would look for a motion to approve.
Omar moves.
Lot seconds.
Omar and Lots. Any questions? All right, I'll call the vote. All right. Agenda is approved. We'll move on to members of the public wishing to be heard. First, we have John Kolsky. You at the podium, you'll have 5 minutes.
I can manage 5 minutes. My name is John Kovaleski. I live on Chain Lake in the northern part of Chippewa County town of Sampson. And I'm here to speak that I am not in favor of data centers for the following reasons. Data centers are not a long-term source of jobs. Of course, there will be some short-term boost to the construction industry, but that is just for the building construction. Data centers require a minimum workforce. Data centers consume large amounts of power. The data center proposed to be built in Port Washington would consume 1.3 gigawatts. The output of We Energy's Oak Creek plant consumes 3,000 to 4,000 tons of coal per day to produce a maximum of 610 megawatts. So that would mean you need 2 of those power plants just to supply the energy for that one data center. The Port Washington would would require double the capacity of this large generating plant. The Wisconsin total summer capacity is 17.43 gigawatts, so this project alone would require 7.5% of the entire state capacity. According to a June 2024 analysis from Barclays Research, annual demand to power data centers in the U.S. could grow by a range of 14 to 21% every year through 2030. That would imply U.S. data center demand roughly tripling by 2030 from 150 to 775 terawatt hours in 2023 to as much as 560 terawatt hours, equivalent to 13% of U.S. electricity demand. The MIT Technology Review estimates that, unlike simple text queries, using AI to create video content is extremely resource heavy. The MIT Technology Review estimates that, unlike simple text queries, AI-generated video uses as much electricity as running a microwave nonstop for over an hour. Where will this power come from? Wisconsin imports 15% of our electricity needs. Who will bear the cost burden? A Bloomberg analysis found that areas with high concentrations of data centers, like the state of Virginia, saw electricity prices jump 267% over the past 5 years. Data centers consume large amounts of water for cooling. A data center can use up to 5 million gallons of water every day, as much as 16,000 plus average U.S. households, according to Environmental Protection Agency estimates. That's just direct usage for cooling. Generating the electricity to keep the data centers powered requires additional millions of gallons of water, even more than the water used for cooling. A study by the Houston Advanced Research Center and University of Houston found that data centers in Texas will use 49 billion gallons of water in 2025 and as much as 399 billion gallons by 2030. That would be the equivalent to drawing down the largest reservoir in the United States, 157,000-acre Lake Mead, by more than 15 feet in 1 year. AI is not bettering student education. Use of AI is crippling our students' ability to use critical thinking and creativity. AI models have inherent bias in their algorithms and yield results that may influence opinions and perception of facts. From Education Week, teachers and students' use of artificial intelligence in K-12 classrooms increasing at a rapid pace, prompting serious concern about the potential negative effects on students. The report concludes, 85% of teachers and 86% of students use AI in the 2024-25 school year, according to Schools' Embrace of AI Connected to Increase Risk, a report released today by a nonprofit Center for Democracy and Technology. One of the negative consequences AI is having on students is that it is hurting their ability to develop meaningful relationships with teachers, the report finds. Half of the students agree that using AI in class makes them feel less connected to their teachers. A decrease in peer-to-peer connections as a result of AI use is also a concern for teachers, 47%, and parents, 50%, according to the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Then we have Jessica Reichel.
Hi there. Can you hear me? My name is Jessica Reichel, and I reside in the city of Bloomer. And I'm just here a little bit to piggyback a little bit off John. I wanted to express how important it is going forward for our county to really walk some of these decisions full circle. Otherwise, as humans, we tend to have a tendency to kind of walk decisions half a circle and make decisions that have consequences that don't always work out in our best interests. And so I'd just like to recommend that we map our consequences and impacts on our land in the Chippewa County. And as we go forward, asking questions, can we live with these consequences of our decisions? And I just wanted to mention too, how valuable fertile farmland is and how important it is to protect that right now at a time where supply chain issues are happening around the world. Supply chain issues are fragile. We have wars, pandemics, and extreme weather. And if we have our protected land in Chippewa County, we're much much better able to adapt. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have Danny Atkinson.
Hello, everyone. Able to hear me okay? My name's Danny Atkinson. I live in Chippewa Falls here, and I'm glad that the county is taking a proactive approach in some conversations today around things like economic development, especially as some of you, I'm sure, are all starting your terms on the board. As I'm sure you all know, the decisions that are made on the Chippewa County Board will affect and impact the community for years to come. We all want Chippewa Valley and really all of western Wisconsin to be a place where people can continue to live, raise a family for future generations, where land's available to build a home or start a business, and where your average person can make a living. And as I look around the state of Wisconsin over the last several years, I've seen how economic developments like frack mines can sometimes go wrong without the proper planning, how communities have been left on the hook across the state with facilities that may be shut down as wealth and resources were quickly extracted before ultimately going south. I've also seen how a lack of transparency as a result of things like NDAs can leave community members in the dark and lead to sometimes more harm than good. So as we see more and more proposals like data centers hit communities, a lot of them are being caught where they're underprepared or outright unprepared. And what you all have the opportunity to do is look around the state, look around the nation, and make a plan for how you want to ensure that the future of Chippewa County is one where people want to continue to live. I see the sign up there that I'm sure people point to all the time. The future is seldom the same as the past, and that is very much the case. But by taking a proactive approach, you guys can prepare for the future as opposed to being caught on the back foot. So really grateful that you guys are all taking a proactive approach and making sure that Chippewa County is and continues to be a place where your families, all of our families, can continue to live in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have AJ Larson.
Hello, my name is AJ Larson, and I'm a resident of Eau Claire. I recently graduated from UW Eau Claire with a degree in education, which took me all around the Chippewa Valley for school placements, getting to spend time in all of these beautiful places. I've spent a lot of time in Chippewa Falls recently, and I've gained a deep fondness for this area and the sense of community and connection to nature it has. This is why I'm here in Chippewa, to speak on some topics that I believe could endanger that community. I hope to give you some things to think about as you make these decisions to try and protect our shared community in the best way possible. I know that several towns in this area have been grappling with how to balance economic growth with protecting a community's resources and way of life. Big industries wanting to come in and locate their work in our communities is a complicated subject to engage with. Oftentimes, it looks like those industries will create more jobs in a community, only to have those jobs disappear a few years down the road. Take oil drilling in the South, for example. Companies decide to extract oil from land in small communities. For several years, this community's identity evolves to revolve around the oil industry. Jobs open up, they last for a short time, then they go away once the oil supply runs dry and they're no longer needed. This type of boom and bust cycle is a way that companies exploit small communities. It looks good for economic development in the short term, but in the long term, it is catastrophic. Some examples of this cycle that are relevant to our area up north are frack mines, which were mentioned earlier, copper mining, and data centers. There's currently a big push for copper mining in the Boundary Waters, an area beloved by many. Copper mining leaves behind huge waste piles, chemicals and radionuclides at abandoned mine sites, and a destroyed tourism economy. No one's coming here looking for copper, luckily, but other industries operate with this same destructive cycle. Data centers also destroy a town's economy and identity. The construction period takes years, during which time there is heavy noise and pollution, parents worried about their children's lungs filling with dust as they play outside. The jobs they bring are temporary. Once the data center is built, only a few people are needed to maintain it. After those jobs disappear, the town is left with a source of constant noise, a huge building they're stuck with, no matter whether AI does well in the future or not, and property values going down because no one wants to live next to a data center. The people in Minnesota didn't get to use their voices to protect the boundary waters. Here, you can give your people a voice to protect this community from industries seeking to take advantage of it. Each decision you make now affects your community and others around it in the long term. I appreciate the work you're doing to figure out what's best for our shared community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Sabria Baker. Did I say that correctly?
No, but that's okay.
Thank you. I'm not certain I've gotten one exactly right yet, so don't feel bad.
Oh, Lord, okay. So I haven't spoken in public in a long time. I also have essential tremors, so please bear with me. I'll shake, but I know I should because I have a voice and I should use it even if I shake. Hi, my name is Saber Baker, and I do live in Eau Claire. I'm here because I care about our communities and see how they are all connected. My family moved here last year for a career opportunity, but no matter what opportunities come our way, we're going to stay. We fell in love with the Chippewa Valley. We love how interconnected the area is. We love that the people here want to live with the natural spaces, and they take pride in that stewardship. We want to be secure in the knowledge that the hiking trails that we take our kids on will be just as beautiful as they are now, that our descendants can live and grow here like all of yours. I've reviewed the slideshow, and I see that we are going to be speaking on data centers tonight. When we do, I urge you to consider the impact on all of our descendants and their continued ability to thrive in the valley. Looking at you, hi, I know that just like me, you guys take into consideration your children and their children, so your grandchildren, and how those decisions impact that future. But I also know that you have the added responsibility of thinking of my children and your children and your children. But I'm concerned about how there seems to be a frenetic energy driving the development of data centers that seems to discourage that long-term consideration. When we think of how our big decisions in our personal lives could potentially impact our kids, we need to look even 4 years past that, at what our land will look like. Do you want it to look like the lakes and streams you played in as a kid? Do you want to be secure in the knowledge that our descendants can tell the same big fish stories from the ice shack? And while we may wonder, what will the Chippewa Valley look like in 7 generations? We don't have to wait to see the short-term ramifications of these mega projects. I know I'm not the only one with these concerns, clearly. I'm here to encourage our leaders to take this opportunity to make sure that we are in charge of if, when. Those tremors, man, if, when, and how these projects happen. We must prioritize the health and safety of the community as we make these decisions, ensuring also that we in the community and surrounding areas are not the ones footing the bill of any reclamation or cleanup, putting safeguards in place where we never have to worry about a situation where that would even be necessary. If we set clear guidelines, a path for enforcement of these guidelines, and effective repercussions for failing to meet these guidelines, we set the tone. Because what is a $250,000 fine to a billion-dollar company? A developer's concern is the enrichment of shareholder portfolios. Their job is to sell a product. Our concern and your concern is the best holistic interest of our communities and the areas that are interconnected with them. We're seeing other places that are having buyer's remorse. We have an opportunity here to shape how these projects move forward. The consequences of the decision we make now will be felt for the next 7 generations, but it won't take that long. So we have to take the time and care necessary right now to get it right. Thank you.
Thank you. And then lastly, we have Blaine Halverson.
Good evening. My name is Blaine Halverson. I'm from Menominee, and I've been working with the Menominee Data Center Group for a while as an organizer, but I'm not here to ask the Chippewa County to stop anything. I believe each community should make up its own mind about things. What I am here to do is to encourage you to start something, and that is to start the process of being proactive about how you handle a situation like data centers. I'm here representing Great Lakes Neighbors United, which is a new statewide coalition of community members from 13 affected communities from the data center movement and what's been happening in that. And we're working together now statewide to try to support communities and just helping them as they navigate these waters and these landscapes, help them kind of maintain their ability to have leverage in the situation and not lose their right of self-determination in the process, because that can be lost really quick when we're not proactive. What we've seen consistently in the communities across the state, especially the beginning here, where no one saw it coming to the degree it came. And people just didn't know how to be ready in advance, nor did they understand the ramifications of not being ready for it. And what it left is difficulties, great difficulties. And a lot of those difficulties come from, I mean, you know what you know, and you kind of know what you don't know. But where the real challenge lies is in that area where there's this whole list of things that you don't know about. So that's all the information. That's like the underneath of the iceberg that can sink you, if that makes sense. So what I'm here to do is I'm here to encourage you to take the steps to do what I would call a disciplined, deliberative approach at due diligence. A few steps that I would recommend, and I've got a whole bunch of this, but because what I've been doing is working proactively, trying to be proactive here in Western Wisconsin to give people tools to help themselves get ready for this. Number one, I say have a plan for for transparency. Too many have a plan for secrecy. It will backfire. Any one of my friends in the other communities can tell you that in the communities where there wasn't transparency, those relationships and that trust is destroyed, and the community is at war. And the people who weren't behind it will never get behind it. Next, define your process in advance. Make sure that you have clear, detailed plans of steps, timelines, required reviews, new or improved administrative rules and tools. I would encourage you to build a really complicated application made up of an exhaustive list of questions. And in learning this issue, I learned about the, what's it called? What's your, the case, there's a township here, Cass, is it Cass Valley? Was it one of the townships? Anyway, there's a township nearby who had a frack mining ordinance. And I'm looking at their ordinance, and they have an application that you could follow as a guide, but adapt to data centers. It's very, very comprehensive. I would say control the tempo. It's okay. Friction is your friend. Speed is theirs. They're going to try to convince you, when they come around, they're going to try to convince you that if you don't hurry, you're going to lose out. That's just not the case. It's their AI race, not yours. It's their AI bubble, not yours. And if in 3 years they're still solvent, you can call them up, and I guarantee you they'll be happy to come and build you a data center if you still want one at that time, right? That's kind of how that industry is working. I encourage you to cooperate and collaborate within your community. Talk freely with your villages, your cities, your townships. Pay special attention to your townships, because when you're county zoned, you can feel a certain vulnerability. I know in Grant County, 3 counties this week have adopted their own zoning because of the threat of a data center that was looming, headed their way. Part of setting your own pace. Yeah. The other thing about collaboration. In the last 2 weeks, I've had about 6 or 7 communities reach out to me saying they would like to see some form of regional coordination on this subject. And so that's something that Great Lakes Neighbors United is looking to try to facilitate. And we're here as a reference. We are not attorneys. We are highly experienced in this situation in Wisconsin. And the last thing I would tell you to do is please check in with the people in the other communities in Wisconsin who have the data centers being built. Go down, visit, drive around Mount Pleasant, drive around Beaver Dam, talk to the people who live there, see how they're affected. And I think you'll learn a lot. And that's really where you want to pay your attention, is to the people that represent that community, so that you can take care of your community. With that said, thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, thank you, everyone. All right, from there, we'll move on to county board chair appointments. Before we put it on the floor, I just want to explain a little bit on the process. It's a very technical sheet that myself and Supervisor Seidlitz and Jackie and Andy and Tracy sat down with yesterday and went through it one by one. The reason that this is relevant is because one of the most difficult things on top of trying to pair individuals with the committees they wanted to be paired with is also we cannot create a quorum of another committee on another. For example, planning and zoning cannot have 3 members from, say, highway, because you now have a cross quorum, and that just is not good practice. So that's why it kind of looks so scattered in all of this, but that's why also when we bring this to the floor for we can ask any questions at any level at the micro or macro levels, but the vote tonight is on the appointments as a whole. Tonight, if someone would want to move one particular spot, that means that would cascade to shifting multiple spots across all committees because of that potential of a quorum. So what we're going to, you can ask questions at any level, but the vote itself will be to vote both the chair's appointments and the administrator's appointments as a group, and that is completely up to you. So having said that, I would look for a motion to approve to put it on the floor for discussion.
Later so moves.
Lot seconds.
Later in lots. All right, what questions do you have? Please use your remotes to. Make one last request for questions. Supervisor Hardy. Oh.
Sorry, that was a mistake.
Nope. Fair enough. All right, seeing none, we will call the vote on approval of appointments. The chair's appointments. Yeah,
We need a motion for that?
we had a motion in a second.
Motion, second. Just did.
What do you- All right, approved unanimously, 20 votes in favor. Thank you. We'll move on to the county administrator appointments, and same concept. I'll look for a motion to approve to put it on the floor.
Goodman, I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. What question do we have? Any questions do we have about the county administrator's appointments? Make one more call for questions. Seeing none, we will call the vote. We have 19 yes and 1 abstain. Motion passes. All right, then we will move on to County Board Orientation Phase 2. The first one is Wisconsin Municipal Mutual Insurance Company, WMIC, and Multiple Property Insurance Company, MPIC, to give their presentation.
Okay. Well, I don't need it right now, but so for those of you who may not be aware, the Corporation Counsel Division is responsible for administering the county's liability and property insurance programs. Our legal assistant who couldn't make it tonight is Deb Blevins. I'm sure you'll meet her at some point in the next couple of years. Her job is to process claims, and she closely coordinates those with our liability insurer, which is Wisconsin Municipal Mutual Insurance Company, WMIC for short, and our property insurer, which is Municipal Property Insurance Company, MPIC. Deb also acts as the county's representative on the WMIC board. And interestingly enough, Chippewa County was one of the founding members of WMIC. Many years ago. I had 1998, I was close. So the county does have, we're one of the founding members. It does have a long-standing relationship with WMIC. And it's been very successful. And I think currently we're one of 20 member owners of WMIC. WMIC's executive director, Palin Allen, and Jackie Call, who is their director of operations, as well as MPIC's director of products and underwriting technology. Did I get that right, Brian? Brian Bergman. They've been gracious enough to join us tonight. They're going to provide you some background on their organizations, and they'll talk about the services that the county enjoys, one as a member owner of WMIC and also as a partner with MPIC. So I'll let you guys take it away.
You're doing pretty good. You want to keep going? Slides. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Who wants to talk about insurance? It's a great starter, I know. We have been looking forward to coming up and joining you this evening. We've done this on a few occasions, and I think the timing is good because I believe there's some in the room that this will be the first time you've heard it. I understand that many of you have met with us before and know a little bit about our organization, and so maybe we'll try to add some things in there that you haven't heard in the past to keep it new and exciting. One of the things that Todd mentioned was a member owner. You know, that's very unique in this this relationship, this partnership that we have, is that you, along with others in the state of Wisconsin, are actual owners of our organization. That's a big deal. Most insurance companies aren't really set up that way. You know, they're set up to generate a profit. You have a board, and the board has to show that there's a good ROI. And if you don't have that, then it just gets kind of ugly. But that's not how we operate. You have been with us since 1987, along with many others. We have not lost a member in our time in existence, so we're pretty proud of that. But that's a two-way street. I think we're doing some things right, but also our members are very engaged, very active. They participate in our board meetings. They give us guidance and you know, help determine strategy of the organization, and all that's for long-term success, I think, very critical components. So I'm going to touch on a few things, and I'm going to try really hard not to get, you know, deep into the insurance part of this, but it might generate some questions. And as I go through it, always remember, keep in the back of your mind, you are a part owner. That's why we're so transparent in what we do. When we get up and talk in front of our members, we tell them good, bad, or otherwise, because we want everyone to be totally informed about their organization. So we kind of look at ourselves as stewards of this membership. If you take a look at our overall population across the state, 20 members may not sound like it's almost 3 million people. You put our entire populations together. So we're mostly counties. We're 15 counties. We're 3 cities and then 2 special districts. So putting us together, that number of nearly 3 million matters. And the reason it matters is it gives us tremendous leverage. We can go into the marketplace on your behalf with a conglomerate that is significant in size, where we can get access to markets that you would maybe struggle to find on your own, pricing that you would probably have a hard time finding on your own because, again, we go in as a block. And so that right there, if there's no other reason, it's simply a tremendous advantage in having us have the numbers that we do. Put our employees together, you know, it's a little bit over 23,000. So again, we're pretty sizable when you take a look at WMIC as a whole. What are the advantages? Well, this is not our money. One of the really neat things about being at WMIC is we look at anything that we take in as our members' resources. We're extremely responsible with that. And you know what? If we took in a little bit too much on the front end, we like to give it back on the back end in the form of a dividend. So we've had very healthy dividends and continue to have those year over year. But that again is not just something that we're doing because we're feeling generous. It's because our members perform well. We've done well as a company, and you know, the organization as a whole has been successful enough to allow us to responsibly give back to our membership. Input, again, I cannot emphasize enough how engaged our membership is. Most of the time, that's a good thing. Every now and then, wish they were maybe a little less engaged, but I would say overall, it's been fantastic. Jackie, my director of operations, and I, we tell them consistently, we can do anything that you would like. You got to tell us what it is. And they're not shy in doing that. So we have a lot of clarity in our direction and what we're trying to accomplish and what we need to do because of that participation from our membership. The networking opportunities. I think I didn't realize this at first. I've been with WMIC going on 4 years now. And when I first came in, I don't think I appreciated, like I do now, how diverse our group of professionals are. So, I mean, just on our board, we have finance, we have corp counsels, we have risk managers, we have administrators. I mean, just on our board alone, that doesn't even count all the individuals that are official representatives representing their counties or their cities. But that alone has given us, I think, a tremendous advantage as well, because when we get into a deep strategic discussion, we have a lot of viewpoints. And I feel that we've made really good decisions over the last few years. We'll talk maybe just a little bit about our numbers, but I feel like a lot of those good decisions have been made because we invite and have experts in the room, invite their feedback and go based on it. Sharing of best practices. So usually you're not alone. If you're struggling with something, there's probably another county or another member that struggles with much the same. And so simply being able to bring that up in our meetings, we have 4 board meetings a year. One of them is virtual, 3 are in person. And at person one's a lot of networking conversation. And oftentimes we have developed or come up with different policies, different ways of ensuring different products because of those conversations. So again, I think it kind of speaks to that back and forth we have in our partnership. And then that access to group purchase arrangements. So I have already really mentioned our buying power. It gives us access to markets that I think we would have a very hard time, any one of us individually, getting access to, we're able to do because of our collective impact. This is just a quick rundown on some of the insurance that we provide. I don't really need to read through every one of those. The only one on there that is truly on WMIC paper, if you're familiar with that terminology, that means that we insure it in-house, would be the liability. A number of the other ones that you see there are us going out into the marketplace using that purchasing power to grab a market for some of these different coverages that we do not bring in-house. So we farm those out to other entities. But again, we're able to do that very effectively because of our size. Anything you want to touch on that one?
Nope.
Jackie's coming. Yeah, she's coming soon. So just hold on here. The good stuff's coming. This is where I think I could lose some of you because it's a lot of insurance ease. But it's important to understand how you're structured because it's going to tie into what Jackie's going to talk about. If you look on that very bottom layer, it says member SIR. And the way to think of that is a deductible. Every one of our members has a pretty significant self-insured retention. Deductible. We do that because we want members that care about this organization and what they're doing and have some skin in the game. And by taking on that first layer, that first level of risk, you inherently have a built-in concern for what you're doing locally as much as you are for the entire organization. The next layer above that is where WMIC steps in. So we have a $2 million layer in coverage above whatever that SIR is. So for the sake of discussion, you're at a 200,000? Yes. A 200,000 SIR here in Chippewa County. WMIC would take the next $2 million layer. We ensure that when we give you premiums and pricing, that's a part of what it's for. But we don't want to stop there. If you're at all familiar with today's environment, it's a little scary out there. Nuclear verdicts, social inflation, we're seeing just a skyrocketing of judgments that are coming out, and we need to be prepared for that. So WMIC takes all the way up to $15 million and provides coverage to our members, but we do that through reinsurance. So we take that $2 million layer. On top of that sits an $8 million layer. We have 2 different players that share in that risk. You can see a 75 and 25%. That's how that's broken out. That organization is called GEM. You don't probably need to know or care to know, but think of GEM as just like WMIC is a bunch of members to create WMIC. GEM is a bunch of WMICs to create GEM around the country. So we pool our resources together, and that's a layer of reinsurance that we're getting from GEM, and then the other half from Genesis. $2 million on top of that, another $3 million on top of that from different carriers. This is significant. One, it's extremely good protection. Like entities within the state, stop at 10 million. But our membership has made it very clear they want the extra protection. So we'll go all the way up to 15 million in coverage for our members. So I know that's a lot of fun right there. And I don't know if there's any questions on anything so far. All right, I'm reading the room and you're saying, when is this insurance guy gonna get off the stage? And that time is right about now. If you do think of any questions as Jackie's going through some of her stuff, feel free to ask.
My name's Jacqueline, or
One
Jack.
moment. Sorry, Supervisor Hennick, you have a question for the gentleman?
I understand. There's a number of, you're here to help us understand the cost of insurance, correct?
Understand, I'm sorry.
You're here to help us understand the cost of insurance.
I think we're here to talk about WMIC and who we are and our relationship, and then also talk a little bit more about the claim process and claims itself.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a question you have on cost of insurance, I'd be happy to try to answer it.
We all know that this is one of the higher cost areas in the state. And
Are you talking about Chippewa County, this area?
Eau Claire, Chippewa.
Okay.
I also know that there's some organizations sending people to Appleton, the Appleton, Oshkosh area to get major operations. They pay them mileage, they pay them per diem, and they end up paying less than what we do here. Is that part of your consideration for the future?
I think there may be a touch of confusion. I think what you're referencing is that the healthcare of our employees in our community, and they are not our healthcare provider. They are liability, and that's fine.
I was trying really hard and I wasn't following, but I'm glad you put it up.
Yes.
That helps. Yeah, we're on the liability side and property and such.
So, which brings me into what is a liability claim. My name again is Jacqueline, or Jacqueline Call. I've been with WMIC for almost 11 years, so some of you have probably been around on this board for that long too. And I started off at WMIC as a liability adjuster, so I'm very familiar with your guys' claims and claim process. I've been working with Todd for years, and before Todd, it was Jim, as well as Deb. I mean, I remember with the day Deb started. So I wanted to talk to you about liability and liability insurance. So what is a liability claim? A liability claim is a third-party demand for compensation against you guys, alleging that you guys were responsible for damage or an injury. So you guys are going to see requests for settlements and requests to disallow come across your desk to make a motion to vote on, to approve or deny a claim. So that's why this is so important, because you guys need to understand what this is and what you're voting on. And any questions about what a claim is for liability? No? Great. So some of the things that WMIC does and some of our handling principles that I also wanted to put on here is that we do manage your claim. You do have a high SIR of 200K, but WMIC handles your claim from inception, $1. We are on it. We take care of it for you. We are the experts in the room for that. We've been doing this for many, many years. For me, it was 10 years. I've been doing insurance longer before that. We have 3 dedicated adjusters that just focus on this, that all we do is claims. We have 700 claims a year, and Chippewa has 23 of them last year. So that's all we do. We pay what's fair. If we pay a claim, that's all. We pay what's fair. We pay it promptly. And then we also use immunities and damages caps to mitigate those losses. And I'll talk about immunities in the next slide, but we try to use your guys' protection to make sure we are not paying claims we do not owe. And then we also refrain from economic payments, meaning we don't just pay a claim for like a nuisance value just to make it go away. We will defend your claim and the actions that the county took that resulted in that claim coming. Any questions on that? Okay. The next thing is a little bit about the insurance policy. So I wanted to kind of give you 2 inserts about our insurance policy that I thought would be helpful for you guys to know. Even though you guys have that 200 SIR, WMIC has the right and duty to investigate, defend, appeal, and control any claim seeking damages. WMIC has that control. Now, we work closely with Todd or Deb and you guys regarding trying to get the best outcome of a claim, but WMIC's policy says we get to control it. And then the next portion is that no insured, except at the insured's own expense, will make a voluntary payment or assume obligation without our consent. So those are two pretty important things, because if you guys do make that voluntary payment or that obligation, WMIC doesn't have to pay that if you guys make that decision. Any questions on our policy? Okay. And then 893. Whew. I'm going to do my best to try to. This is a very nuanced statute, and I'm going to try to simplify it for you. But that means no claim can really be made unless it's made within 120 days of event. You have to file a notice of circumstance and/or a notice of claim. It has to go to the board, or it has to go to the clerk. It has to have all these things in there, like an address and an itemized statement for relief, as well as be signed. So there's a couple things that needs to happen before it even becomes a claim. And then the thing that you may do is either to disallow it or settle it. So you may see a disallowance come by you, and if you guys fail to disallow a claim, that means it's technically statutory disallowed. And that doesn't shorten the statute anymore from 6 months. It goes to the regular statute of limitations of 3 to 6 years, depending on the type of claim that may come before you. So failure to disallow a claim that we may be recommending for you to do is going to keep that claim open longer. The reason why we want to disallow a claim is so we can move it through. Claimants have an appeal process. We give that information to them. They have 6 months to make that action if they disagree with an action regarding a claim. And then this lovely statute talks about immunity. Every claim here has immunity. Immunity, there's no like standard negligence per se. It's immunity. So either we owe it or we don't. And I'm going to talk about it on the next slide. So every claim could have immunity, but the only thing that defeats it are these 3 things right here: ministerial duty, known danger, and actions that are malicious, willful, and intentional. And ministerial duty, it's, say like there was a vehicle accident, a highway driver failed to yield right away to another vehicle. There's state law that tells you, or state statutes that tell you how to drive. We fail to yield the right of way, we're paying that claim because statutes tell us we have to. There's case law that may tell us that we have to pay a claim. And then there's also standard operating procedures. Most standard operating procedures are very vague and typically allow for a lot of discretionary decisions by the employees. But unless the SOP says must or shall do something, that means immunity doesn't apply. If it doesn't say that, we get immunity for something that happens. Known danger, this is one that may be alleged, but we typically do not, without either defense counsel or get the court being involved, say that that's what's going to defeat immunity from ourselves. There's very few cases on it, and we just don't feel comfortable making that decision and setting a precedent by settling a claim that may or may not fall within that. And then this one never happens, but sometimes is alleged. But all 3 of these things must be met in order for it to be made: is malicious, willful, and intentional. Can't be one of the 3. It has to be all 3. So any questions on immunity? It's very broad. It's very guarded in the state. You have other immunities like recreational immunity. This is a defense that we do not want to ever waive. No? Okay. Well, then I'm done.
Thanks, Jackie. Another thing that we just want to mention, WMIC has been working really hard over the last 3 to 4 years to develop and provide different services to our members, things that they've been asking for. In some of these areas that you'll see, these are high impact. We didn't really want to get down into the bloodborne pathogens and HAZCOM, not that that isn't important, but where we thought because of our size and our members' needs, we could really make an impact was in some of these high-risk areas. So we focused on chainsaw training, work zone safety, excavation training, confined space. Those are the types of areas that we have set up and vetted trainers for, and then coordinate with our members should they be interested in doing that. We have access to a number of libraries for those other services, videos in the world of HR, safety, et cetera. A lot of that content can be delivered effectively through the mode of video. And so we have partnered up with these different organizations in order to bring that to our members as well. And then one of the things that is a little bit newer in the last few years are partnership funds. So every WMIC member this year will receive $16,500 to use towards risk management, loss reduction, and that can really be a wide variety of usages. It could be training, it could be equipment, it could be something, a different training than the one that I showed you that they might want to have access to, whatever it might be. As long as it's supporting the reduction of risk, we go ahead and approve it and let them use the partnership funds accordingly. This is how they were used here, and I think a really good use of the funds. You'll notice that totals $15,000 if you're doing math quick in your head. I said 16.5 because it actually got upped this year. That partnership that I just showed you with Safety National, they actually contributed an extra set of funds to our partnership fund for us. There's a quick listing of our members, and in case you kind of dozed off there for a second when I said it, we're pretty proud of the fact that we've been around since '87, so whatever that is for years, and we've not had a member leave WMIC. I think if you really wanted to get into it and you got excited about numbers and finances, you'd see that this has been a really successful organization because of all the parties involved, the commitment that they've shown, and the understanding that this is a long term. You don't just pop in and out of WMIC because your rates went up or down or whatever. This is a long term commitment to something much bigger than yourself. And there was a lot of wisdom when this was started back in 1987. A lot of wisdom put into this, and we are seeing the result of that forward thinking today. So we've been very successful. We thank you for being a part of that success, and we really love working with every one of our members across the state, but you're one of the few that actually invites us out to come and chat. So thank you for doing that. Brian? You got the right clicker for advancing.
As I said, my name is Brian Bergman. I'm the Director of Products with MPIC, and I've been with the company for about 5 years. And first of all, I'd just like to say thank you for having us up here and for being an MPIC partner. One of the best parts of this job is getting to get out into the communities we serve and get to meet the people who make them go. What I wanted to do tonight is just give you a quick overview of who MPIC is and what we do for the county. So to give you a quick history, about 10 years ago, the State Property Fund was disbanded, leaving a massive void for municipalities in obtaining property insurance. So WMIC and 2 other municipal mutual organizations invested $3 million apiece to form MPIC to provide property insurance to their members. In that 10 years, we've tripled that initial investment. It's grown us a healthy surplus, allowing us the financial footing to pay claims and offer competitive pricing. And while MPIC isn't a municipal mutual organization, we try to operate the exact same way as WMIC, where we treat our members as partners in our operation. So what do we actually do? We insure physical damage to the county's property. The core of this is going to be the first 4 bullet points listed on here. But as you can see, we insure a wide variety of items specifically related to municipalities. So just to go into quick in-depth into these first 4, so buildings, pretty self-explanatory, any building the county owns. Personal property, I like to describe as if you cut the ceiling off of a building, turned it upside down, shook it out, anything that fell out would be considered personal property. Property in the open is going to be permanently affixed items that are outside. A typical example would be like playground equipment, street signs, street lights, that kind of thing. And then contractors' equipment is the last big one. That's typically mobile equipment, not licensed for road use. A good example is, any type of road construction equipment or a riding lawnmower, something like that. So who we actually insure is municipalities and municipal-related entities just within Wisconsin. At the end of last year, we'd grown to 670 insureds from around 300 from when MPIC was first formed. We insure over 80% of cities and villages in the state and about 20 counties. Chippewa County was actually one of our very first members. They joined in October of 2015, just a month after MPIC was formed. And they were one of our first 50 policies and have been with us ever since. And that's something we're very proud of, similar to WMIC. We're actually on an 18-month streak of 100% policy retention. If there's any number that we like to hammer home with people, that's the one. We like to keep our members together. We credit this to really competitive pricing. We have a really excellent and responsive claims team. As a WMIC member, we directly work with you, so you can also consider MPIC your insurance agent. We work directly with you on all your property insurance needs. And then we solely focus on municipalities. So our entire goal is to make things easy on you. And one of the unique things about MPIC is because of our size, we're very accessible. You can get just about any of our employees on the phone at any given time, including our CEO. Despite being a smaller organization, most of our time is spent continually reviewing and making changes to our coverage forms as we see new issues arise for municipalities. A couple of recent examples of this are we increased the scope and limit of coverage for service dogs and horses. It's a little bit of a niche thing, but it comes up in municipalities all the time. Another is we started offering municipal-wide coverage for fiber optic cables, underground fiber optic cables. One of the other services we began to offer is over the past few years, we introduced a new online portal where insureds could go in, manage their property listing, view any policy and billing information, and issue certificates of insurance. Through that portal, we also provide the ability to track and order boiler inspections to maintain compliance with state regulations, and that's a free of charge service we provide. And then we're always looking for new ways. One of the more recent things that we introduced was we introduced a drone training program through the Northeast Technical College of Wisconsin in Green Bay for first responders within municipalities to get a little extra experience on drones. And then probably the most important service that I want to talk about is our appraisal service. So every 5 years, all of our insureds get an appraisal to make sure their property is valued up to replacement cost. It also gives us a good chance to review the statement of values, make sure nothing's missing. Probably the worst thing we have to do ever is tell somebody that something's not covered because it wasn't on the statement of values. During Chippewa County's first appraisal in 2018, all buildings valued over $250,000 were visited on site, and we collected data to assign an appropriate replacement cost. All other property was valued in what we call a desktop valuation, where we use the information given to us to assess a replacement cost. We again appraised the county in 2024. It was at a higher level this time, so only any new buildings over $250,000 and any with substantial changes were done on site. The rest, we had collected that core data that we needed to make an assessment on the replacement cost. Looking forward, the next appraisal is going to be in 2029 for the county. It's amazing how things change in municipalities over those 5 years, so it's something that it keeps us up to date on everything. That's a quick overview on MPIC, and I just wanted to thank you again for your time. Happy to answer any questions.
Supervisor Guthman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question for any one of you. I see that you had noted, including fiber optics, wastewater facilities, utilities, water systems, and more. And I didn't see like Milwaukee on here as one of your members, but I'm just curious, as we're seeing lots of events happening in our communities in the state of Wisconsin, how how do you navigate that, whether it's property damage or other kinds of things that's affecting our county responsibilities?
Yeah.
Because there's just a lot going on, and I'm just curious to know if you have made recommendations, or do you have recommendations for us, or?
Yeah, absolutely. That is one of the big reasons that appraisal process I talked about is in place. I think that's the single biggest thing. One of the biggest problems with the state property fund was a complete undervaluation of property, where they got to a point where they were paying out more money in claims than they were taking in. So I'd say from a property perspective, especially, just the biggest thing is communication. You know, we work with Deb as well, and just frequently talking to her, making sure everything's scheduled. And then, yeah, that appraisal process is really, really huge to keep up. Want to touch on the liability part of it, or?
I mean, you can talk about Milwaukee County, which is understandably a little bit different animal.
I mean, for these big weather type of events, of which I'm assuming you're talking about, liability doesn't really come into play here. It's a weather event, it's an act of God. So the county's typically is not responsible for those types of losses. That's why citizens have their own homeowners or auto insurance to help them with this process. I know with emergency management, you guys are doing what you can. You have an emergency department that helps out. Things that get volunteers in to help with that. That is the stuff that WMIC covers. It covers volunteers. If something happens with a volunteer that does something to a citizen's home that may be helping out, we would step in at that time during these types of events. So from that aspect, but from the main point of a citizen getting water damage or their car gets hailed on, that is not the county's responsibility, but we do assist in other ways.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Kelly.
Thank you, Chair. I guess like homeowners insurance, right? We got to shop around. Like, who's your competitor?
So there's a handful throughout the state. There's a mutual organization made up of counties. There's a company in Iowa called EMC. Rural Mutual maybe is another one. Actually, I believe the county did just last year with the property insurance as well. So it's from just a purely a board perspective, it's a good process. You know, if we were not doing right by you, then something you should explore.
What separates, I guess, you from the rest? Not just because of loyalty, right? Like,
Yeah, pricing is definitely a big piece of that. As we've built our surplus, we've been able to retain more risk. So we've moved from $500,000 retention on our part. So if there's a big storm, those claims are lumped together. We used to retain the first $500,000, and then the rest would go to reinsurance. We've bumped that up to $1 billion, and that brought down our reinsurance cost, and then we passed that savings along to you. And then the other is just customer service is huge to us. We're a really small organization. It's the CEO, we have a director underwriting, and myself, but we're always on the phone or respond to emails as quickly as possible.
thank you.
I would add actually coverage to that. MPIC's really unique. I'm working with them. They are looking to ways to cover their members. You know, that's like the complete opposite of what you typically find. And so I've been really impressed in working with them, how they will every year take a look at that policy again, see is there a way that we could provide additional coverage, to our members. And you're doing the right thing by asking the question, hey, should we go out and take a look? And I'd encourage you to go ahead and do that, because in my experience working with them, it's gotten to where the outside market, when they ask who's your carrier and they say MPIC, they're like, we're done. Like, we're not even gonna try, because they can't price it, they can't beat the service and they can't beat the coverage. But that's a good exercise, right, to go through, especially in your role. So, don't mean to.
No,
absolutely. Competition to you, but I'm sure that you would fare well.
No, absolutely. Like I said, it's good hygiene on the county's part to explore what's out there. So, but we like to think that we can match up with anybody.
Appreciate it.
Supervisor Gehring.
So we've listened to 3 different people, and it appeared that was actually 3 different products. Are you all under the same umbrella?
No. So Jacqueline and myself, we're with WMIC. and we're the entity that provides the liability coverage by yourself and others. We are a 1/3 owner of MPIC, but when the state fund went belly up, there was no solution in the marketplace. And so 3 entities that you would consider competitors actually came together. It was amazing, and in 10 months went from concept to completion in creating the property company that is now, when you say 80% of the state, that's incredible. That's in 10 years, they went from no policyholders to 80%. So they've done really well. Does that make sense?
It does, thank you.
Okay, yep.
Any other questions?
See, insurance is fun at times.
Yes. Riveting.
That's where we tell ourselves.
Appreciate it. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for your time.
All right. We will then move on to orientation number 2 here. Yes, you're free. I mean, you can stay. You're welcome. We're moving on to economic development with Charlie Walker.
Thought I had 5 minutes.
Okay, they would be super excited if you had.
Said, yeah, awesome. Mr. Chair, thank you. Good evening. My name is Charlie Walker. I'm going to give a little bit of my background. Most of you know, but we have some folks in the audience. Excuse the accent. I am originally from Texas. Fell in love with a Wisconsin woman, and boom, there you go. Right? I was previously, I've been the manager of economic growth and planning with the city of Georgetown, Texas. Prior to that, that is one of the fastest growing communities in Texas. We implemented what was called a smart growth policy. It's not economic development, it's called manager of economic growth and planning. So I bring a background of what we're going to talk about a little bit about today. And the title is Economic Development 101. And the thing that when we talk about economic development, you want to know why we do it. It's really to make sure that there's a future tax base for the future generations. You'll hear me say everything we do is for 20 years. We're going to see the ROI 20 years plus today. So we have to be very conscious in how we approach our economic development and what we're doing. You're going to hear a common theme tonight, and you probably already have in the past 2 days of training, about, we just had one about insurance. In 1987, Chippewa County took the lead and solved an insurance issue. Throughout the history that I've been here, Chippewa County has taken the lead. We have been recognized throughout the country as leaders in economic development. We've established in your budget, when you do your budget, you're going to see you have a budget line item called revolving loan fund. The county established a revolving loan fund to help existing businesses, help entrepreneur startups. But what you also don't know is the county took the lead to establish the regional business fund, which is the big regional business fund in the region, is $1.5 million that was invested in that. Now, why I say that is because you're going to see in your history, and the finance director's not here, so I'm pretty sure on this, we have never had a loss in those loans. That's debt financing. We've never had a loss. And that's because we have a process in place that makes sure what we do is top of the notch, state of the art, it's covered, and it's transparent. I want to look back road to here. We're about moving towards transparency. So economic development, we're going to have to take a look at what we're going to do in 20, 30 years. So the county board members, I love you guys. You guys are looking long range, and we're doing a great job. Another success.
Just stay near the microphone.
Oh, yes, can you hear me?
The people that are screaming, won't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me in the back, please?
We can hear you here, but the streaming won't pick it up.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
A lot of people watch this.
Excellent. Thank you for reminding me. Again, leadership. Several years back in the 90s, the county took the lead to establish an industrial park. They took the county farm, turned it into an industrial park, and that's Lake Wissota Business Park. And we'll talk a little bit about that. See if I can do this correctly. All right. In economic development, it's a lot of process of improving a community's well-being. Basically, a lot of it is what's seen. I always use the iceberg analogy. You see it, everything thinks it's the result, but there's a lot of things that are underneath the current that you don't see. It's the value multiplier, the impacts, the businesses that create the entrepreneurship. There's a lot of things that are under the project that you see that create the economic development. It's a vital process, and that's important for every community. I always say there's probably not a community that doesn't have an economic development process, because we want to make sure there's a future tax base to pay for the schools, the roads, the health insurance, the health and human services. And so that's key benchmarks. There's not a lot of economic development corporations that have the expertise that we do. So we partner in an economic development corporation. We're kind of your, if you will, professional consultant on economic development. We are a nonprofit organization, and we work with the governments and the businesses all to help the economy grow. The reason an economic development corporation is that we're flexible. We take that long-term approach. As you guys cycle in and cycle out, we can start a project like the revolving loan fund that takes certain couple years over. We can do foreign trade zones. We can do projects that are through election cycles. We're not also bound by bureaucracy, and we can move very fast. That is one of the things, key to market, and we can move very fast. We also have the expertise. We handle a lot of complex projects, and that's kind of how we are set up to do. And the projects have, we make sure that what we work on have long-term positive impact. When the foundations, and I'm going to talk about the foundations and the movement of economic development, it's real simple when you look at anyone take an economics class, 101, the very first thing they talk about is the leaky bucket, the theory of the leaky bucket. And that's really as water's going into the bucket, you also have leaks in an economy. And those leaks are, for instance, it could be a Walmart that goes across, how about I pick on like Costco, across the border. So anybody who goes from Chippewa County into Eau Claire, that's a leaky bucket because of that tax money, that revenue is leaving out. So there's a lot of things that we do. We're trying to put wealth in the bucket, but at the same time, we're trying to plug the leaks. And that's kind of do it. I put in a history, and I'm not going to go because of time, just a history of the corporation and how it's transitioned and some of what we call the highlight. You know, we saw the frac sand. We did that. And one of the things, again, let's look at the frac sand. Chippewa County led the effort because of the competent staff and working together. We have the track record, and it was mentioned to the gentleman, that was Cooks Valley that he was trying to get to. But that was about putting the ordinances in together, putting the transparency together. And you can see that there's a positive economic impact for the frac sand. And then when the economy goes or the industry wanes, you can see that in Chippewa County, it is adopted to that. The reclamation and everything is pretty good. You can also thank the corporate council and the team. And I'm going to keep talking about that because they worked hard to make sure, Doug Clary in Planning and Zoning, make sure that all that is protected as best we can. But we continue to market. We continue to do things, putting wealth in that. We really talk about the pillars of economic development. It's pretty much universal. It's a business creation or an entrepreneur program, because we're going to see a couple slides down. That's probably the biggest job creation, is helping the entrepreneurs and the existing businesses. And then we have existing businesses in Chippewa County that want to grow. A natural cycle is to grow, so we help them. There's a variety of ways we do that. We call that a BEAR. You'll hear me talk about BEAR. It's just an acronym of business expansion and retention, because it's a marketing ploy, because every community needs a strong BEAR. In the North Woods, we love the BEAR, right? So we also talk about workforce and talent development. I don't like the word workforce, so when I talk about it, I'm always talking about talent pipelines, talent development, because when you're a welder, that's talent to that machine shop. Typically, when you talk about talent, they're talking about doctors, lawyers, and such, right? So I like to say it's talent. It's our people that are our talent. Business attraction. 10%, when a company expands to a new geographic location, 10% of the workforce that they bring are from out of the community. So that means, for instance, when Fleet Farm built, they had 220 jobs. You can imagine 20% of their numbers came from outside, but average is 10%. So you're bringing in new citizens into the economy, as well as attracting economic-based jobs. And then we do product encouragement. That's where we work on ideas like the foreign trade zone that we're looking at, the new industrial park, doing things that we can do on legislation to help. We'll talk about the closure of the hospital and how we did product development to help replace that. So our pillars are just pretty simple, and I'm going to go over some of those. When you build the entrepreneur ecosystem, it's pretty complex. It takes a team, a collaboration. So you see all the players. We're talking, you name them, they're involved. We work with Stout. We work with UW-Eau Claire. We work with the high schools. We work with the Chippewa Angel Group. We just do a lot of work with small business development centers, SCORE. So in that, it just shows you there's a lot of folks involved in trying to get an idea to a business to actually get funded. We have the hatch and the pitch, and that is what we do. That's probably an important thing. And I put this up here because I call it the retirement crisis. We hear it in the manufacturing shops. We hear it on the floor. We're all going to retire. In Chippewa County, you're going to see 50 to 60% of the business are going to retire. What's going to happen when the Main Street Bakery, the owner, decides to quit? What happens if the farmer decides to quit? We know that we're not producing enough entrepreneurs and enough business folks to replace that. And again, we're talking about 20 years from today. So we're putting into programs and the training to help the entrepreneurs. 60% of the Bloomer businesses owners plan to sell within the next decade. We've already seen that impact Chippewa County. We've had companies that were family grown that have been bought out by equity groups, and that has, we can say, an interesting impact on the community because the decisions aren't made here, right? The donations to the community involvement aren't here. And that's going to get more and more until we can get into an entrepreneurship arena that really starts new companies and new ideas. And that's what a lot of our focus is. So you'll hear the bear pitch, and we encourage people to do that, the hatch deal. So entrepreneur development is really a big focus of what we're doing. And here is a picture of an actual pitch, and they actually award winner. We did some things this year that the winner of our pitches automatically go to the governor's conference and can pitch there. We've had success with companies that we call POP. We've had 3 companies in the last 5 years that have actually popped and their product is launched. Again, building the ecosystem is very complex. It's where you play in there, and it takes a lot of collaboration, a lot of teamwork to make that happen. Again, the retirement crisis. Now, these are 2 slides that are duplicated because we're going to go in, and this is IA, artificial intelligence generated those slides. When you typed in, you can see the difference in how they did the presentation. So let's talk about every community needs a bear. So there's a variety of programs that the bear program takes on. We have lunch and learns. Employee ownership is the last one we did. Cybersecurity, how to protect your business in cybersecurity. We have celebrations. We celebrate things. That reminds me, April 30th at 4 o'clock, I believe, Tracy, the county board was invited to the groundbreaking of Rogers Behavior Health. Please come and meet them because that is a major infrastructure investment for mental health that the county has accomplished, and it's a victory, and let's all learn more about that. Mark your calendar. The most significant job creation is from your existing businesses. And so we have programs, we have discussions. So we even have a podcast on entrepreneurship. It's the magic. The podcast is fun to listen to, but it's the 30 minutes before and the 30 minutes after when we have a conversation with those businesses about how they're doing, and we can get a pulse of the community, and we can get a pulse of things, and I will report back and say, here's kind of what's going on. And so you can take it that this is the feedback from the business community. So we've got the podcast discussions, and you're always invited to that. And then we have bear visits. So we actually go to the businesses and we tour them and we find out what's happening and what are their pain points and where they're doing, and we bring together a team. One, it shows that they're appreciated, and second, we get to learn more about the industry and where it's going, and then we can help them with some supply chain issues if they have it. In the lunch and learns, like I said, the most popular ones are employee ownership. We're putting in a lot of that because there's a lot of companies that are trying to figure out, when I retire, what am I going to do? How do I do an employee ownership? What if I do that? Where do I go? What about cyber crime? What about phishing? We're really helping the businesses with those. We also, in part of that, is our advocacy. Or we are kind of, I don't want to say lobbyists for the county, but we take your legislative priorities when you talk about we need funding for a bridge or something, and we really will help push our local legislative folks to get on board. We work with everyone, Republican, Democrat, Independent, and we help push some of the accomplishments that you see. Senate bill, these are here, you can read them in your packet, but these are just some examples of success that we've done. One of our legislative speed dating that we do, we bring the legislators in the room, and then they move from table to table, talking to the businesses and getting the issues that we need. STEAM, we started the first science, technology, engineering, arts, and math program with Chippewa Falls High School. We started the career fairs in Cadott and Bloomer, and those have taken legs. Again, all part of the main question is, how are we going to help the next generation and position them to move? Business attraction is always, everyone wants to think that's the biggest, that's the big thing, and that gets the biggest headlines. That's really a small amount of what we do. There is a process in that and how that works. Transparency is the default, okay? Confidentiality is the rare exception in economic development and attraction. Very rare. So the way we run our economic development program is, and those that have been on the board know, we talk openly. We do that. In fact, I think it's for 17 years. Todd and I have argued on what can go in closed session, because he's really good at making sure very little things go into closed session, that it's open. And that, again, goes back to the county staff and how competent they are. In Wisconsin, I'm going to talk about this because it's just a little education. We are being proactive, and we're going down a journey because we know what's going to happen. In Wisconsin, remember, non-disclosure agreements do not guarantee secrecy. They cannot block a public records request, right? They cannot prevent disclosure or ordered by a court, all right? So here's the advantage of non-disclosure agreements. They might help signal expectations to a company, right? They're going to say we're open for business. If they ask for an NDA, I can tell you right now, since I've been here, Todd, you can correct me, I don't think we've ever had an NDA signed that I can remember by any project. So I don't believe, you can check that, but I don't believe the county has signed and county board members have ever signed an NDA. We just don't follow that process. NDA does have some protection on legitimate trade secrets, right? And there are concerns on trade secrets, and I think if some companies are concerned about that, I think that's addressed through Todd, and then that is the reason why it can go in closed session. But again, it can support controlled flow of information early on. Some of the things on these economic development projects, they don't even know what they don't know, and information is fluid, and so they don't want to release that information until they have the right information to release, because some of the things that you can get into problems and is to release something that we think, we hope we might, right? We think, we hope we might, and it turns out that it's totally different, and then we have to go backtrack and say, hey, that's not what we meant. So we tried to do that. An NDA will help us get to the truth and to the thing as that. There's, legal authority always rests with the statute. I think 2 nights ago, Todd put up a pretty good slide that the Wisconsin statute is like it's it, right? So basically NDAs rest with that. And I put that in there and talk a little bit about general non-disclosure agreements. I don't think the Chippewa County, as long as I know, board members have signed a non-disclosure. Now I have, but the reason I do is so I can get all the information and get as much information and ask, like the gentleman said, the 185 questions, right? And so I'm kind of that middleman that I'm going to ask all those questions and I'm going to bring it. And then you guys are going to say, okay, we can move a step forward and bring the client in. And it's when I bring the client in that's going to be announced, and then that's when it gets to where the public gets to have their input on that. So there are some things like protecting the company's competitive position. Absolutely. There are some companies that if they have a competitor that knows that, hey, I'm going to build a plant in Chippewa and I'm expanding into the new deal, my competitors are going to beat me to the punch. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes it makes sure it ensures legal and ethical compliance, because there's some companies that are publicly traded on the stock market, right? And the last thing they want to know is that we're saying stuff that might drive up their stock or down. That's insider trading. That's not good. So we make sure that that's taken care of. I like it because it creates space for honest dialogue. You can have a conversation. They're not going to have to worry about what's going to be picked up in the newspaper, and they're going to be more honest with you. So that's kind of I'm going to pull out those questions, and they're going to say, hey, Charlie, the labor force, they might say, can't pass a drug test. You don't want that out in the public, but they'll say stuff that they normally wouldn't say. So an NDA will build some of that trust for that client. it keeps it from knowing that I won't go in and say, well, the company said, and it gets in the Herald or the Leader Telegram, and it gets crazy. And it ensures, again, I want to make sure the information that's brought to you is as complete and ready to discuss. And so I won't bring anything to you until that information satisfies me. And I do have conversations with the team, and then we'll bring the project forward. I can announce to you that there is not a data center that is looking in Chippewa. I have not been contacted. I had an interesting conversation with broker that I know that probably swung out of Menominee because they thought, they checked and they're kicking tires. Now we've had Bitcoin that has had interest in Chippewa County, and that continues to occur. But that's an electrical energy thing. That doesn't create jobs. That doesn't do anything. So what I tell them is I'm not interested because my job is to create jobs and tax base and wealth, as I showed you, for the community. So if it doesn't hit that gateway, I'm not involved in that. Okay? So I always hold with my organization and with the county is NDAs do support fair and transparent decision making. It's kind of ironic, right? It's like, hey, you're being secret. No, what we're doing is we're trying to gather all the information in a quality amount of time that we can bring to you guys so that when you're ready to discuss it, you can have as much and the best facts that you can do to have the conversation. Now, in business attraction, it's just really about the number of inquiries, the number of leads, and it's just like the thing. The funnel goes all the way down. And so it's an awareness. It's about how open you are on doing business. And I can tell you some of the red flags that I look for is secrecy, right? If that's kind of, so if we're not ready to talk about the pros and cons, the advantages, we want to make sure that we have a program of being aware, and we talk and we sell Chippewa. And again, history goes to show that we do a really good job of that. In the business, and I put this in here because you want to kind of see it starts at the top. So, and we'll just pick on data centers because that's what they're doing right now, but I'm not interested in that. But any business that's looking for a location, they start at the top and they put it in the funnel and they eliminate locations. So they don't choose a location, they eliminate one. And my job is to provide them information down that through that funnel that makes sure that we stay on that list so that they can go into a room and have a conversation with you guys. That's the ultimate thing if we had a magic wand of what it is. And I always put in that, people talk about incentives, and that's the last thing. Incentives aren't the driving factor. That's another red flag. If they're asking for a lot of handouts, we'll screen that out as well. Now, what I put in here is some attraction trends because we all know it's coming. We all hear it. We got to be aware of it. And we're going to talk about the first one and this is the NAIC code is the National Industrial Classification Code. You can look it up. It would tell you the type of industries that are in there. And you can see Wisconsin dairy economics and what I put some facts in here. And this is the trend of what's happening. You can do that. But basically what we're seeing in Chippewa is we're going to be seeing more agriculture energy projects in the biotechnology. We're going to see what they're doing with, that's why we established what's called the BDO zone. How many people have heard of corn plastics? Right? So that's kind of what we're talking about, is using corn to go into plastics that are biodegradable. There's a movement with companies that are going to have to do. A lot of the farmers are going to be pressured, especially if they export, to reduce their carbon footprint. And to do that, we're going to have to help them with some tools to do that. So you can see the biorefineries is a target that they're looking at Wisconsin because obviously there's enough corn stover. It's an actual deal. Combined dairy infrastructure, you can see, again, you have to be proud of the state. The numbers are there. That's taking what you have and adding value. So you're going to see the farmers, you're going to see the ag industry, the food processing, you're going to see that continue to grow. But what you're going to see is it move towards a more sustainability avenue. I put some facts in here so you can see the dairy plants by the county, and you can see most of it where it's at, and you can see Chippewa doesn't have a lot, but what we do have is a lot of smaller farms. And so we're working with those to try to get them to export their products, to try to do hit to the what we would call the sustainability. You heard the gentleman speak earlier, farm to table. That's where the advantages are. The market trends are specialty cheese. You're going to see soybean. You're going to see mergers of family farms. That's just, again, part of that. We don't have enough babies. That's been a demographic issue with the deal. And you're going to see more alternative protein competition and succession planning on the farms. So those are going to be a huge deal. And then we're going to have to talk about the tariffs. And the tariffs enter into some programs that we think we can help adjust from the tariffs, and that's why you hear about a foreign trade zone or a free trade zone, those kind of concepts. And would they work in Chippewa? Can that help those products without the tariffs? Foreign trade zone. Now, this is our favorite topic, is the data centers. I put some facts in here. It changes every second. And, of course, the NAIC is 518210. This is a map you can get publicly, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see why data centers are important. You cross-overlay your fiber, your electric lines, your natural gas lines, and you put them all together, and boom, 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 and when you look at what you're doing, you go, hey, there it is. One of the things that drives, we have to talk about why is Wisconsin so popular now. It's not really that the state is popular. It's just that when you add the ambient temperature, the fact that MISO is pretty solid, the fact that we have spent years moving away from coal creates a counterculture because these companies, remember, they also have to reduce their carbon footprint as well. So they're looking for areas that have, if you look at Xcel Energy, they're big into sustainability, big into solar, big into hydro, big into wind. That's a perfect formula for something to come in and say, hey, I don't need to rely on coal, because for them, their goal is, and why would they want to reduce their carbon footprint? Anyone know? That's because their customers are in Europe, primarily, right? So when their customers are demanding it, and that's what's happening on the farm, that's what happens with McDonald's. If you want to be my customer, you're going to have to reduce your carbon footprint, and it's being forced down, top down that way, okay? This is the number of U.S. data centers. Again, it was 3 weeks ago. I'm quite sure it's changed, but you can see Wisconsin is way down on the list. Where you're going to see the biggest ones, of course, Texas, and you're going to see, because of the natural gas, the fiber. One of the successes we had at the county is that we spent a lot of time in broadband. We spent 5 years making sure all Chippewa County is served by broadband. And we've done a good job. Technically, Dennis probably knows this better. I think there's probably less than 2,000 people in the county that do not have broadband. And then you have to take the people who actually refuse it, right? So that number actually goes smaller. So in technicality, I could say we're 100% in a county broadband. Again, remember the map. You have broadband. You have good power. You've got gas. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to say that might be a good location. When you look at the trends, these are the trends, and you can look them through yourself. And I just wanted to give you some data. There's no doubt that in the country, the demand for data centers is huge. And there's no doubt that sooner or later, like I think you heard the speakers earlier, we are going to have to address the issue. And that's why I wanted to make sure that it is a trend, and we are preparing and going down that road to make sure you guys are aware and how we're going to have to deal with it. Like it or not, that's not my call. My call is to help do what you guys want. You guys say do a data center, then my job is to make sure that we can get it done. It's real simple. The map of the data centers in the U.S., you can see that. Now, the Chippewa Valley has 3 data centers. It's not new. 11 years ago, the city of Chippewa Falls got a data center. You never know it's there. Eau Claire's got one. You never know it's there. The other one is more on a Bitcoin and doing some Bitcoin stuff, and it's in Stanley. Never know it's there. But again, that's why we go to the largest operating. Now, when we start moving into, this is the thing that we want you to be totally aware of, is that there are different types of data centers. And that information is, we want to learn what type of data centers are there. And now they're getting smaller and smaller, and as every month goes, technology is moving, the way they're stacking it, and it's just a crazy movement into the arena of data centers. So any questions before I go on? Because this is just a teaser to give you enough information to let you know that this is out there, that we're going to have to educate ourselves and figure out which ones we want, which ones we don't, whatever, pros and cons of all data centers. We just have to be aware of what it is. And I think you heard that from a lot of the public. I have to put in this too. You guys know the Jump River. I know you're very familiar, Mr. Chair, with that proposal to put that high transmission line. And there was a real concern that it might go through the middle of Chippewa. And there was a lot of activity, as the chair will know, that it didn't go. It went to the south. It's still going through Chippewa, but its route is planned to go through the south. Again, it doesn't take a rocket science to see that if they're going to put in such a high transmission line across, that probably you're going to find folks that are going to want to be right underneath, because it's cheaper to pull from the power core than to run. It's faster, cheaper than to run 18, 20 miles of transmission to the industrial park. So I would also hold the argument, go back to that map when you see the transmission lines, the natural gas lines, the fiber lines, and when they come together, then you have a high likelihood that that would be a nice target deal for data centers. And the hyperscale that are coming are going very fast because they are behind in the demand. Did you know that despite what people think, it is not the younger generation that uses AI the most? Guess who does?
Boomers.
45 and older are the ones who use AI. It's an interesting number because we are the ones that use it. Maybe we have too much time on our hands, Mr. Chair and Andy. Maybe that's why we can do it. I don't know.
I don't know how old you think.
It's all good. So anyway, it is moving forward, and those are the things. But I thought, and I talked to Andy, and we wanted to put this on there because it is going to be I don't think anything's a challenge. I think it's going to be a journey where we're going to have to make sure that we know strong enough of what we're going to do if, when a data center does come, and that's the case. But I know there's a lot of rumors, oh, they're going into New Auburn, oh, they're this. But I can tell you that there was a Bitcoin that wanted to take advantage of a conservation property, and that was in the town of Bloomer, and they went through the process, and the town of Bloomer decided that they didn't want it, and that's fine, and they moved on. So that was, again, the attraction of that was conservation land, because this particular company didn't want to be out. And why are they in the rural areas? Because in the urban areas, everybody knows where they're at. How many people saw in the news where they were taking pictures of the Air Force Base? If it's in the rural community, statistically, if I see somebody out in a car taking pictures of a building that you shouldn't be here, they feel it to be a little safer. And so some of that comes into play. So just be aware that when you have the conversations, there's a variety of reasons besides that infrastructure. Some of them require agriculture blockchain is a big one. The ag farmers now are having to start tracking their seed beginning, and that uses a lot of data processing. The further away that data center is, the unreliability it is, so they have to be closer to the end user. And then, of course, we have to look at the economic impact, because Chippewa is the founder and the home of Cray supercomputers. So guess what probably makes most of those servers or server racks, the employment in that. So that's a whole deal to be close to it. A second thing is we have pretty good people. And the electricians and the trade industry in Wisconsin is one of the best in the nation, and the work ethic. They know in some of the data centers that if they can get one like Mount Pleasant, that they can their construction costs are going to be cheaper because the quality of the labor, the union electricians, the amount of them, they can get it in time and under budget. So there are some advantages that Wisconsin has naturally that does make it an attractive place for businesses and data centers. Manufacturing companies look, food processors look, and it only makes sense that data centers are going to take advantage of that. Now, when we talk about product development, we have gone on a journey because one of the things I talked about was that as the company's existing businesses grow, they run out of space. And we've seen that with Mason Shoes. We've seen that with, I want to call it the old one, EDI. I want to say EDI, I got to say EDI Nordstrom. But remember, they were going to expand, and that was a battle between. They could have gone to Ohio, so we had to say no. We could do it, and the county stepped up, and they built a building in Lake Waukegan. So they're running out of space when they expand. So the product development is where we're going to have the next industrial park. We'll go through that real quick. We did a study a couple years back. Our burn rate at how much space we're using, and that's from a variety of, if you look at Water's Edge Cheese Curds, that was a local company that expanded, needed space. That burn rate is going fast. Where are they going to go next? So the county has been wrestling in a good, positive way of surveying the communities in Chippewa County and finding where the next industrial park will be. Now, one of the things that you know, T in 29, the county chose that they will assist Eau Claire as Eau Claire expands their industrial park, and that would be out by Country Jam, right, coming out to T. And the county is helped support, they're supportive of that. And so that's growth that when that corridor develops, that's tax base that's going to come into the county. And it's less hassle on any, I guess you could say, let the city of Eau Claire, do that, and we're supportive of that. And you'll see there's a couple buildings that are building out there. That's on the Chippewa County side. So we'll benefit from that. Going back to the original issue, we do have to make sure that we have a tax base. That's as elected officials, that's important, because without that, you can't provide the necessary services. And that's the number one KPI, is how are we making sure, because the businesses pay about 60 to 70% of the tax base. And so we want to be cognizant of that. We're open for business. We want to make sure it's the right business, that it's the right fit. So in attraction, we also take that. So in product development, we are working on where will the next industrial park be. And I'm really talking to the two newly elected folks. We'll get you up to speed on that. So basically, why we invest in economic development, and it's a full circle because, like I said, bottom line, as the rising tide lifts all boats, our whole deal is, we don't worry about minimum wage in Chippewa. You don't see that argument come on, that we have high-paying, good-paying jobs, good citizens. It's a great place to raise a family and a business. And we're very cognizant of the assets of place marketing and tourism. And I didn't mention tourism, but it is a very important element in economic development that the county supports, and they have leveraged that with the Chamber of Commerce, the Go Chippewa, and they do a great job of bringing visitors. So we're not downplaying tourism. It's just, I could say I talk on everything but tourism on this because we let the Chamber take care of that. And so it basically is a full circle, and we are going to, with your chair's permission, that would be, and the committee's permission, we're going to go through some series of, if you guys want more Economic Development 101, we can do that. But going back, you spent last year going through a strategic plan, what we call a SEDS document, community document, that you had got community input, and that starts the top of the funnel. That's what, if it doesn't fit in that plan, it's a no-go, and that's our first gate, and then we work down. Okay? I am surprised that no one's interrupted me and asked questions. Going once, going twice.
What questions do we have? Supervisor Erickson.
Yeah, this is my third term on the board, and I've been in economic development each time. And the Hatch program, if anybody's ever concerned about ingenuity and it being dead, has to come to a Hatch program. I've just always been amazed at the variety and the really good ideas that some people have in our Chippewa Valley. Another one is that annual legislative speed dating. We get to sit down with all our area legislators. And, when you're able to talk face to face, that just makes all the difference in the world. And we just have a lot of different events like that aren't necessarily out there like luring in a business, but it's still very important. And if you ever hear about a Hatch program, you wanna feel good about the area, go to the Hatch program.
Mr. Chair, if I might, one of the things that Mr. Erickson talks about is the fact that we are, and you guys know me, I don't brag, but no, we have a very competent, it's award-winning economic development program. It sets the trend. Hatch has been duplicated across the country. And it's because we got together we've got great innovators here. We call it, our branding is the spirit of innovation. It's a spirit. It's something you can't touch, but it's there. Just some really cool things. And you're seeing that happen. Again, I always say 20 years plus today, and it's going to really happen.
The STEAM one too, I went to that at Chippewa Falls this year with the kids there in the high school and what they're working on, and then, you know, what's available to them is another one. Go and see.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What we did is, again, March 15th at 7:30 at the Country Jam is going to be our annual meeting. We'll have probably 500 businesses there. We'll be celebrating the youth apprenticeship. What Wisconsin does well, and of course, I'm a Longhorn, so I'm saying that is just fantastic. That, you know, the state of Wisconsin started the youth apprenticeship program. I didn't know that. And then it's what we've taken it to is amazing to get businesses to participate. And we got to get them at the, and you got to get them at the middle school. And, you know, the high school, they pretty much already, with today's technology, they already know what they're going to do. So the STEAM is an excellent way to really get these kids at freshman and sophomore level and keep them here. Stop that out migration and get them to start building a business and taking over the stuff when we all retire.
Supervisor Hennick.
Couple of questions. You were instrumental in bringing that hospital here, right?
The team was instrumental. I get again, I'm the face, and they go, oh, yeah. But yeah, we did a lot of work. I did a lot of work behind the scenes, but if it wasn't for the county staff and the team, that would have never materialized.
Well, for you and the team, I'd like to say thank you.
And if I do say I'm really talking about the organization.
Any other questions? Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Appreciate it.
We'll be continuing to move our journey forward, and I look forward to working with each and every one of you. Have a blessed night.
All right. Next on the agenda, we have our county clerk, Jacqueline Sadler, orientation.
Big shoes to follow there. All right, so we will try to go through this quickly because I know it's the second night this week and we all want to go. So, statutorily, county clerk office falls under 59.23, and there's three major services that we are responsible for: election administration, which we'll talk about a little later in the presentation; legislative support and administrative services. That's the parts that you see for here with the agendas, the minutes, the oaths, all the things that we provide to the county board. And then licensing. Our office does the marriage license, dog license. Work permits actually aren't done anymore through our office. That's all done online through the state now. But besides our statutory roles, we also provide notary services. We do the minutes and agendas for 4 committees. We're a backup for the other committees. We do all the ordering and delivering of paper for every county department. We process all the incoming and outgoing mail, handle room and vehicle reservations for employees. We do DNR licenses, fishing license. Opening weekend's coming soon. If you need a license, come to my office. And then we sell like the plat books, stamps, movie tickets. And of course, our office is the fun office, so we have smiles and laughter for you. That's our staff here. I have been county clerk for almost 9 years, and Lisa Merrill has been with us for 35 years. And Amanda has been full-time, and she has been with the county 15 years, 12 of those years full-time in the county clerk office. Lisa did give us her retirement notice. I think she's down to 6 years. And Amanda's panicking, so. So things that you need to know for county board is meetings are generally held the second Tuesday of every month. April and November are different. We have 2 meetings every other April, and then we also have 2 meetings in November. You guys are paid monthly. It's got those wages there. The per diem, you're paid $35 a meeting. For county board, you just have to be here, check in. That's how you'll get paid for that. But if you're at a committee meeting, there will be a form that either goes around for you to sign, or if it's a meeting that I am clerking, I forget to pass it around and I write your names down.
Meals, mileage, lodging, you have a separate reimbursement form. But if you are traveling for meetings, please reach out to us and we can go through that form with you. If it is outside of any of your standard committee meetings or something other than like WCA, you do need to have the chair's approval to attend other meetings to get that reimbursement. This tiny thing is the payroll calendar, so you can see when you'll get your direct deposit for every month. You guys are paid, like I said, monthly, but hopefully you can see it in your handouts too. This is the per diem form that you'll see for your committees, and if you attend a meeting, you would fill this form out. If you need extra copies, we have some up here in the room, and otherwise we have some down in our office as well. Just the mileage rate, which is also written on the long form. If you are traveling for a meeting, going to Madison or something, and you don't want to take your own personal vehicle, reach out to me and we can reserve one of the county vehicles for you. Conference registrations, pretty soon. We're going to have a couple different things coming up that you may want to register for. But I will send out an email because the WCA annual conference is in September, but that registration and hotel rooms open up June 1st. In that packet that I gave you on Tuesday from WCA, there was a flyer in there for the COWS workshop. That's the county officials workshop. If you want to attend that, let me know. We can get you registered. I have it here later, the dates in there. I think it's right here. So that's May 20th if you want to attend the one in Eau Claire. Otherwise, there are the virtual options, and I think Supervisor Lotz did the virtual ones last time. And then there are other parts in the state if you can't attend one in May. September 20th to the 22nd is the WCA conference. This year it is, well, actually now I think going forward, it's always going to be in the Dells, and it'll be at the Kalahari. So that one, you'll see, I'll probably send a couple emails. It's very important that you let me know right away because rooms get booked really fast. This is that long form that has all that information, again, if you're going to travel for a meeting. Physical mail, actual paper mail. You guys get a lot of things, usually from WCA. Put them in your mailbox, and it's in room 104, which is part of kind of like that finance area. That fob that you got will let you in to that room. Your fob will also let you into the building at night, and then also the break room on the lower level, and then the hallway by my office if you were to need to get a vehicle, clipboard, and keys. You should pick up your mail monthly. I am really impressed because this last board did really well. In the past, we've had supervisors that did not check their mail for the entire 2 years, and I did not see that this year. That's good. Meetings and agendas, we kind of went through this. Sorry for the 2 new people. If you guys have any questions on how to find meeting agendas or minutes, we can talk. But otherwise, through the presentation here, it has it step by step, how to find it. Also, this is a reminder for everyone here. You got your committee assignments today. Make sure that you go update your account to make sure you're getting the notifications for your new committees. You can still receive the other ones if you want. You can sign up to get notification of all committees. Again, if you're not on a committee but you want to follow it, that's a good way to do it as well. But here has the step-by-step instructions, and I think we emailed it too, didn't we? And you should have received an email with these instructions as well. All right. My favorite topic, but maybe not yours, is election administration. So Supervisor Hardy has been an election worker, so is Supervisor Gehring. All of you should be. The biggest thing with election administration is it is not, most people think of elections as one day, right? We just had the spring election. That was April 7th. For my office, we started preparing before November 15th for the spring election because we had to have the notices done before then. I believe we've technically finished the spring election, but we do have until May 7th to finish all of the data entry and reconciliation of the election. And we thought we were going to have 2 recounts last week, and those actually were canceled. So that was good. Partisan primary is coming up August 11th. We started working on that election March 17th. So before the last election was even over, we were starting on the next one. And to explain that, the filing deadlines versus ballot delivery, we have such short turnarounds by statute when the deadlines are. So the filing deadline for the August, it's actually the November election, but for the August primary, the filing deadline is June 1st. The challenge deadline will be June 4th. After the challenge deadline, then there's 3 days for a response. The state will certify candidates June 10th. I cannot finish programming or creating the ballots until June 10th. And I need to send that order to the printer because I need to have the ballots to all of the municipal clerks by June 24th. So you can see that things move very quickly for us. Our election equipment is through Clear Ballot. There are only 2 counties in the state of Wisconsin that use Clear Ballot. However, they are in many other states and very, very large cities. We have 4 systems with them: the ClearCast, which is the tabulator, the Clear Access, which would be the ADA compliant piece of equipment. You would see it as the touch screen. We have Clear Design, that's how we create the ballots, and then Clear Count is after the election. We upload all the ballot images so that way we could review them if we needed to. We did, when we got the Clear Ballot equipment back in 2019, we trained over 150 municipal clerks that year. Actually, I did training in October of last year, and I trained almost 200 election workers for the spring election. We'll have training in July for August and November as well. Some things that are different between the county clerk role in elections and the municipal clerk. We kind of do everything up to election. The election day, absentee ballots getting mailed out, that all goes through the municipal clerk. However, we do a lot of the ballot tracking, voter participation for the municipalities. We enter everything into the state voter registration system. We're checking those voting records, keeping that database up to date. One thing a lot of people question me about, right, is all the people that supposedly are in the voter records that should not be. Our office checks the obituaries every day, every single day. We get notifications from Social Security, from Human Services. We are updating the voter registration system every single day. We get notifications from the DMV. We get notifications from other states. So we are constantly updating. On election day, I always just hope it's quiet, because then that means everything's going well and I don't need to do anything. But you may see me out at polling locations on election day, checking in, working if there's questions, concerns, either with the voters, election workers, piece of equipment is maybe not working properly. Take care of all of that. Public test. So, because I might have some control issues, our county is the only county that tests the equipment at the county level. Every other part of the state, the municipality, tests the equipment. We did it for a couple different reasons. One, the county paid for all the election equipment. We now store 90% of the equipment here in the building, so that way it is safe and it's secure. Many of our municipalities, towns, they don't have secure locations. They can't guarantee that no one else is accessing it. They don't have a locked closet. They rent out their town hall. Anyone could be accessing that. So we took that from them. Plus, I'm not sure that in the past, all the municipalities were testing their equipment when they were supposed to be. So now, about a week before the election, we test every piece of equipment, make sure it's working properly, and we send it out to the municipalities for the election. That is open to the public. We do live stream it on Facebook. And basically what we're doing is we're testing every single ballot style. For April, for example, we had 104 different ballot styles for Chippewa County. When you add in school district, county board district, municipal races, it's a lot of different combinations for the county. And making sure that the ballot read for each candidate, each contest, each referendum. So it takes a little while. Obviously, election security is very important. So we do different security trainings. We've gotten different HAVA grants. We helped IT upgrade some of their information. In 2021, our office was remodeled. We have a secure election room. Like I said before, we store all the equipment as well. Then after the election, we have our county board of canvass, and basically that's us certifying the results of the election. The county board of canvass is myself, and then one Republican and one Democrat, and then Amanda from our office takes the minutes. And basically what we're doing is making sure the number of people that signed the poll book matches the number of paper ballots that were in the machine, and making sure that the results tape matches those as well. And if anything is off, we figure out why. After the election, we do audits where we hand count different municipalities' results to make sure they match what the machines match. We've never had an issue there. We enter all the participation. And again, just making sure all the numbers match up. Whew, that's fast. Questions?
Supervisor Kelly.
Thank you, Chair. Did we ever figure out what happened in the village of Lake Alley?
Well, I have some assumptions, but we had a new clerk who had people helping that had not helped before. So what Supervisor Kelly is referring to is both Supervisor Kelly and Supervisor Rochelle, part of their district is in the village of Lake Alley, and some voters got the wrong ballot. They got for one of them. I don't know who's got what. And what was weird was that it was like a married couple, same address, they lived there 20 years. One got one ballot, one got the other ballot. I think it was a stuffing issue. I think they were not. So when we have all those ballot styles, I put on a little block of color, pink, yellow, green. I never use red or blue, just so we know that, to make sure that we know, all right, District 14 is going to be pink. District 13 is blue. No, not blue, yellow. And I'm not sure. I wasn't there. I wasn't the one. But I did follow up with those voters because Supervisor Kelly reached out. We reached out to them. Thankfully, right, in that specific situation, the ballots were exactly the same except for that race. Neither one of them had competition. So would it alter the outcome of the contest? No. However, when we want things to be accurate and people are getting the right ballots, we need that to happen. So yes, there was a training opportunity.
Thank you for the update.
Supervisor Shoebridge.
My computer was sorry.
The documentation says October's meeting is the first week. Is that true? I can't get on the website for the agendas. It says October 6th. I didn't want to change
It should
my
be
calendar.
the November one should be, not October.
October's is the 6th.
Oh, no, that's just a data entry.
Okay, thank you.
No, the only one would be different, would be November will be the first Thursday after the first Monday. And then the, oh, see, I could go back that way. Sorry, Tracy. I can. Want me to do it? You got it? Got it?
Phone just went to sleep.
Nope, that's wrong. Good call. I don't have the calendar in front of me, so it would be probably the 13th then. Yep.
Supervisor Hennick.
I represent District 15, which is both Lake Alley and the city of Eau Claire. What's my color? And what part of Lake Alley?
So I don't know your color because the color changes every time. It's just whatever color I type in the box that day when I do the ballot order.
What part of Lake Alley do I actually serve?
I would have to look at the map.
Lake Alley.
I would have to look at the map. I do not know off the top of my head.
If I stop in sometime?
Yep. Yep. And there's a map also on the website too.
Because Jackie's computer locked up here, I can no longer see if anyone else has pressed their button. So we will go to the hand raising for the moment if you would like to speak additionally. Any other questions?
That means I talked too long.
Thank you. We're at the 8 o'clock hour. Usually at 2 hours, we take a 5-minute break, but we have one more presentation. Should we power through or do people want to power through?
Sam said power through.
All right, we are powering through. We have one more orientation on open meetings and open records law.
Hello, everyone. I've been told by court reporters before that I talk fast, so I'll try to exercise those skills tonight to get through this as quickly as possible. I think I've spoken in front of you a few times now. For those of you who don't know, my name is Brady Seidlitz. I'm a deputy corporation counsel here in Chippewa County for you guys. The other deputy corporation counsel is Attorney Sam Renner. He'll be doing the second part of this orientation, this presentation, where the deputy is under Todd. Todd did this presentation last year, but like all of you, I think he's sick of presentations, so it's fallen to Sam and I to do this one. This is open records and open meetings, which is only marginally more interesting than parliamentary procedure and insurance. So I'll continue on then. So open records and open meetings are known as sunshine laws collectively. Essentially, the intent of these laws are to allow citizens to monitor how government is functioning, how it spends public money, exercises power, and how it makes decisions. The open meetings law can be found under section 19.81 of the statutes. And as I said in the last slide, the purpose is to give the public the fullest and most complete information concerning the affairs of government. So to carry out that purpose, the law requires that all meetings of state and local government bodies be publicly held in places that's reasonably accessible to members of the public and open to all citizens, unless the law provides elsewise. The law also states that it's to be liberally construed to carry out that goal. So if there's any question about what we're doing, you should err on the side of transparency. The scope of the law, so who does the law apply to? It applies to a state or local agency, board, commission, committee, council, department, or public body, corporate, and politic by constitution, statute, ordinance, rule, or order. So for our purposes, that's all of you. So it applies to all of you, and it applies when you guys have a meeting. So that goes to the next question of what's a meeting? A meeting is also defined by statute. It's a convening of members of a governmental body for the purposes of exercising their responsibilities, authority, power, or duties delegated or vested in the body. The reason that this is important is that under Wisconsin law, these meetings are required to have public notice. And because lawyers tend to complicate everything, judges have to essentially interpret what that means. So there is this showers test. That's what the picture is representing. And the showers test is essentially that you ask yourself two questions about whether this is a meeting. Are you talking government business, and how many of you are there? Notice that one of the requirements for a meeting is not a location. It's not at a government building, at a government center. It could happen in a park, it could happen in a bar, it could happen at your house on your phone or laptop. So that part's easy. So moving on to quorums. Quorums is relevant to the showers test because it impacts the number of members convening, whether that's sufficient to determine the body's course of action. A simple quorum is relatively easy to wrap your head around, although you saw the piece of paper that Tracy had generated that Mr. Chair had shown all of you, so even that in itself can get complicated. But things can get even more complicated. One less obvious way that a quorum can occur is what's called a walking quorum. Walking quorum is a series of gatherings among separate groups of members of the governmental body, each less than the quorum size, but who agree either tacitly or explicitly to act uniformly in sufficient number to reach a quorum. So a walking quorum can be created by one-on-one conversations in person between individual members. It could be by phone, by email, essentially that it would create a quorum to act. Hypothetical would be that a supervisor calls committee members one by one, asking how they're going to vote and try to devise essentially a majority for whatever the vote is going to be at the next meeting. That would be a classic example of a walking quorum. The basic philosophy here is that government decisions should be made open with public having the opportunity to comment, not essentially prearranged in private. If members are talking privately and creating a situation where it wouldn't matter what the other votes are going to be, essentially that means that the vote at the meeting is going to be predetermined without the public's ability to input. The best picture I could come up with for this, it's a walking quorum. I thought of The Walking Dead, so
Let's work on that one.
Once you're bitten, you're kind of infected, so you can potentially spread it to more people. So yeah, that's the best I could come up with. So we have negative quorums, so we're going even deeper now. So it's not just the power to pass a proposal that could potentially create a quorum for these purposes, but it also could include the power to defeat a proposal. So things are easiest when there's a simple majority. If there's a 5-member board or committee, and 3 would be a quorum, 3 is necessary to pass or reject a proposal. But things can get a little bit dicier if the required percentage is different. So a situation that might be 2/3. So theoretically, if in a 5-member committee, if something requires a 2/3 vote, that means 2 people could defeat the proposal. That means if 2 people outside of the meeting have their own private discussion where they agree to vote against the proposal, that means, again, the outcome of the vote is predetermined, and that is a negative quorum. And then that implicates the public meetings law because that presumably was not given public notice. Electronic mail-in quorums, communications via electronic mail can be considered a meeting. Emails. So if you hit reply all to an email addressed to everyone, that could potentially create an open meetings issue. That's why when you get an email from Andy, a lot of the time he might include a line at the bottom that says, please don't reply all to this message. Closed sessions. So I think Todd had a slide on this Tuesday. So again, I'll try to go through this quickly. We start off with the presumption that government meetings are open to the public, but the legislature has created a number of carve-outs that allow the county board to go into a closed session. The meeting itself has to be noticed, and there has to be a reasonable description of what is going to be discussed in closed session, so the public has some idea what's being discussed in closed session, even if they aren't essentially there to hear it. So this is a list of some of the exceptions. I'll talk about, these aren't even all of them, but I'll talk about the 3 that are most likely to come up. The first is employment. That's considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the body has jurisdiction or exercise authority. I believe this is the exception that you would use for the county administrator's performance evaluation. There's also conducting business. So deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons requires a closed session. So an example of this could be that a county wants to acquire a piece of property for a project. Theoretically, during the discussion, the members could talk about the maximum price they're willing to pay, how urgently the county wants the property, whether there's any alternative sites, and how far it's willing to compromise. So theoretically, if that was open to the public, the individual who owns the property could be sitting in the back when they're discussing what the maximum price is. A third party could listen to that and swoop in with a higher bid than the county is willing to do. So essentially the idea here is that the legislature is giving the county's ability to go into closed session in order to preserve its negotiation and bargaining power. The next is conferring with legal counsel with respect to litigation. This is similar to the last one. There's a lot of strategy that's involved in litigation, settling a lawsuit, how much you're willing to pay, and whatnot. So again, you wouldn't necessarily want the person who is suing you in the back of the room listening to your conversation with legal counsel. One thing to note about this exception is that technically, statute is written that it's not just whether the county is involved in litigation, but is likely to become involved in litigation. So there could be discussions before a case is actually filed if it seems likely that that is the direction that the county may be going, either by choice or not. So that was the why. Regarding the who, in general, a governmental body has pretty broad discretion about who will allow into the closed session, but there are procedural requirements. Any motion to go into closed session must include the names of all of the individuals who will be allowed. Excuse me. And the chair must announce in open session the names of who will be allowed to attend the closed session, and the minutes from the closed session would also include the names of those who are in attendance. This is just a screenshot of our ordinance, so I can skip that one. Some miscellaneous things. Any motion to go into closed session requires a majority vote. The motion must recite the statutory exception and a description of the subject matter that's to be discussed. So you really shouldn't just be saying confer with legal counsel, or there should be some more regarding such and such case or whatnot. So the public has some idea of what you're talking about. All of that information should be included on the agenda, again, so the public knows. Another thing to consider is that the discussion that's actually had in closed session should be limited to the subject matter that the motion is about. So it's not some end around where you can start talking about things that should be public, that the public should be able to comment on while in the closed session for a very specific purpose. When voting in closed session, so any motion and vote to be taken based on the closed session should be an open session, unless doing so would compromise the need for the closed session. So the discussion would be in closed session, and then typically you'd go out of closed session and then have the actual vote while in open session. This is my last slide on closed session. Really, the matters discussed during the closed session should remain confidential after the meeting. It can defeat the purpose of going into closed session if it becomes public as soon as everyone leaves the building. It's not a violation of open meetings law or any sort of confidentiality statute, but you should all just use your discretion, because disclosure could potentially impact the county's bargaining position in business or legal matters. Penalties, and this is my last slide. I included handcuffs on the slide, but don't worry, you're not going to jail for any open records violation. There is potential financial penalties for violating the open meetings law. And I guess I would say that the public does care about this stuff. I was a prosecutor prior to coming to Chippewa County, and I do recall at one point a citizen calling the district attorney and reporting that a large group of their county board had met at a restaurant after a meeting, and he had to investigate it. So again, just be cautious, use your discretion, and if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to Corporation Counsel. And I'll turn over to Sam for open records.
Supervisor Shoebridge.
Yeah.
Could you, I found for the walking quorum, 2 exceptions, if you can address. One is if I bring up a proposal and I need to get signatures, I can call people, show them that proposal, get their signatures on it. That one's on the Wisconsin DOJ website. And the other one is while we are politicking for positions and that kind of, and getting that kind of, if you can address both of those examples, where it is legal to walk quorum.
Sure. Yes. General politicking and getting signatures, that kind of thing. It's going to happen. I think what I would just say is that what the rule is more geared towards is just ensuring that there's not a predetermined outcome prior to coming into the meeting. So it's one thing to get information or to provide information. It's just, the law really isn't very specific and well developed, but it's intended so that you're not essentially predetermining the outcome.
Okay, so if I'm running for a position in here. So if I'm running for that board or whatever, 2 weeks before the vote, I know I'm going to get it because I have 12 people guaranteeing votes for me. Is that walking quorum or not?
So would this be prior to the new board swearing in?
Before we come in here and vote, so we just voted in chair, vice chair, all these different positions. So if 2 weeks before or a week before we actually voted, we know who's going to be here. We have people guaranteeing, hey, I'm going to vote for you. Is that legal or not?
If you haven't taken the oath yet, then I don't know if you're technically part of the new board. That would be subject to the.
Everybody here is because it goes right into the next, carries through. Well, it depends. I mean, so if it happens midsection, what is it?
Yeah.
So I mean, all these things we're getting threatened for walking quorum, but yet we're getting mixed messages of what it is and what it can't do. That's almost legal abuse, saying we're going to be punished for something, but not defining what it's being punished for. So that's why I want to clarify on those two issues.
I think you're looking for a very bright line rule for when and when it's not, and it just doesn't exist. It completely depends on all the facts of the situation. And so it's really hard to say, you know, if all the facts that you're giving me, that's it, then probably not.
Okay.
But when it becomes a problem is when your example was what? That the politicking example.
Well, yeah, there's two examples. One, getting proposals. So if I want to do a proposal, bring a proposal to the board, I make out a documentation for it, and I want other people to sign on with me. I can call anybody in here and get them to help sign on to me. That's not part of walking quorum. That's on the deal.
What do you mean to sign on to you?
A petition, right?
Petition.
What he's referring to.
Oh, okay.
Petition, proposal change, whatever you want to call it. And then the other one is personal politicking for, you're running for a position inside the county board. So those two things I've been, just get a clarification on, is that how that works?
Well, are we talking about that there was a discussion between two people that then turned into 4 people that then turned into 10 people, and then it came back to the person who initially started it?
No.
Then it becomes a plan. That's where things get concerning.
So if I want to run for a position, so I want vice chair next time, I start calling people ahead of time and getting their guarantees, yeah, they're going to vote for me. And I get enough to guarantee the election. Is that right or wrong?
Not in and of itself, but did those other people talk to each other? Did they then talk to each other? Yeah, if you called, that's not in and of itself a problem. What I've told you in the past is it becomes a problem because you lose control. At that point, if you've talked to 8 people, you don't know what those people are going to do. They could talk to each other then, and at that point, it potentially becomes more dangerous in, as far as it potentially being a walking quorum. But it's no different than any other thing with law. It depends on the facts and the circumstances. So if you're looking for a bright line rule, it doesn't exist.
So we could actually get penalized financially for $300 for a law for something that we have no control over, no idea where the line is.
Well, you chose to make it a potential issue if you talk to 8 people and that then turns into them, talking to each other and then eventually back to you. It could be implied as being a plan. I mean, you're the one who created the situation. So
by us talking to anybody else in here about something we want to do, that could possibly turn into this whole situation come back. So we're not allowed to talk to anybody else in here about.
That's not it. You are allowed to, but you're running the risk because you don't know how those people are going to use the information. That's what I'm telling you. You're responsible for your own actions.
Exactly.
Anything else on that? Supervisor Hall?
Yeah, just, I guess to follow up on Dwayne and Supervisor Shoebridge, just for example of the hardest part really is when we start our county board, when we're trying to do this. And just for example, this last time, I had talked, someone had called me and said, here's who's going to be chair, here's going to be vice chair, who's going to be an exec committee. I wrote it down. It's exactly how it happened. And that's part of what this is things that should be voted in public. Somehow agreement comes that it's, it's already taken place before you took the vote, and the vote is just, the public can see that. That's what he's referring to. I'm not going to go into details with it because it gets, the other thing, the question on closed sessions, being able to talk to what happened. I think to clarify it, if you come out of closed session and take a vote, a public vote on what you ever discussed, I think all the discussions in closed session are kind of free to be discussed, aren't they then? If you're done with it, you take a public vote. It's the one when you haven't taken a vote, you haven't taken action, and all that information definitely needs to stay.
Yeah, I guess I don't want to say with, in 100% of the situations, but it is there's a need for confidentiality still. So yeah, if it's there's no longer a need for confidentiality, then yeah, it would be absolutely be free reign. But
Just clarification, if a public vote is taken afterward, that kind of really reduces the need of confidentiality normally, right? Is that, I mean, just as a.
I would say typically yes. Yeah, there's not always a vote. So yeah, but I would say typically yes.
No, but if there is a vote and you publicly make a vote and make a decision as a board, even though it was discussed in closed session, if the public wanted to find out what happened, it becomes public record then, right? With inquiries, if they wanted to find out.
I believe the standard is whether there's still a need for confidentiality. So again, it's not a bright line rule.
That's all.
Any other questions before we move on to the second part of the presentation? All right, thank you.
All right. Mine is even shorter than that, so I'm sure people would hear that. And a court reporter has also told me I speak too fast. So I guess that's just something about our office. My name's Sam Renner. I am the last deputy corporation counsel in the office, so you've heard from all the lawyers now. I haven't met a lot of you. That's probably for a couple reasons. One of them being I'm actually pretty new. I just had my 1-year anniversary in March. And then another reason is a lot of what I do is the in-court stuff, not necessarily the parliamentarian and interacting with folks on a daily basis, but more that side of things. So with that being said, I'm excited to work with you guys. And also with that being said, a lot of what I do is deal with open records requests. We've gotten a lot of them in the past. They're ramping up with the advent of AI. They're coming in even quicker. And so we've been dealing with quite a few of them. The purpose of the open records law is pretty similar to the open meetings law. It's transparency. You all were elected to be in your positions. The people that voted you here are entitled to the information, and they're entitled to know what you guys are doing. And so that's kind of the heart behind the law. And so with that being said, the presumption is typically that people who are requesting records are entitled to see those records, with exceptions. The records law has a list of a ton of exceptions. I'm not going to go over all of them. They're scattered throughout Wisconsin statutes as well. But there are reasons to not disclose records. Those specific exceptions are just one of them. Another reason that sometimes we don't is we do this balancing test where we determine whether or not it's in the public's best interest to have that information or not. Not going to dive into that either. That's a can of worms that you guys don't need to worry about for purposes of today. So to determine what a record is, you have to look at definitions in the law. They're quite long, to be quite honest. I'm not going to read the slide, but what you can see here is that a record in its form is practically anything. Whether it's electronic, written, tapes, recordings, whatever. The open records law doesn't actually really care about the form of the record. What the law cares about is what's contained in it, what it means, or what it's talking about.
We care about whether or not it involves government business. And that's kind of a theme you guys have already heard about in some of the presentations tonight. Sometimes when you're trying to figure out what something is, it's easier to think of what it's not. These are a couple of examples of what isn't a record. Things like drafts, notes, preliminary documents, those are not going to be records. When I think about this, the example that comes to mind is law enforcement. They all got that notepad that they write stuff on when they go out on calls, whatever they're writing, numbers, information. That's not going to be a record. They don't use that. They use it to remind themselves when they go and write the report, which would probably be a record. Those things are not going to count. And so that's the best example I can give with regard to that. Another item that's not a record is purely personal property. I'm a government employee, but I also have personal documents. So someone can't write up a records request and go, I want Sam Renner's mortgage statements, right? Sure, I'm a government employee. Doesn't mean they can get all my personal documents. So that's an example of that. And then lastly, materials with limited access rights. Trade secrets were mentioned a little bit, but just some of those more sensitive documents, those are not going to be considered records for purposes of the public records law. Who must keep a record? It's not that hard to think about, but the definition is a little bit convoluted. An authority is who must keep a record. Authority is defined. It's got a big, long definition. I cut out all the garbage for you. One of the people or entities that is included in authority is an elective official. Last time I checked, you guys are elected officials because people voted you here. So you guys are going to be considered authorities. You're also going to be considered legal custodians, which means you are responsible for maintaining the records that you produce and that you have. Just briefly, I just listed a couple items that could be records. I say could because, you know, this is pretty fluid. This is not black and white, kind of like open meetings. It depends, and there's a heck of a lot of case law out there about what is an example of a record, what is not an example of a record. And the reason there's so much case law out there is because no one knows what a record is, and everyone's trying to figure out if their particular example actually constitutes a record. So a document not created by the authority, but in the authority's possession, that could be like a service contract that was created by a business that we have because we contracted with them. That's going to be a record in our possession. Emails, those next two bullet points, they're mostly about emails. I'm going to talk about those in the next slide. But emails are a big one. Social media can even be a record. Contractors' records, I mean, it goes on and on. Can't possibly list everything here tonight. But really, all you need to know is that the public generally wants to know what you guys are doing, and that's why these are all included. I will say, though, that the most common requests that you guys are probably going to get are requests for emails. People want to know what you guys are talking about on your business email, or I should say government email. And so I fleshed it out a little bit more on this slide, and I want to draw attention to the difference between your government email and your personal email. I assume everyone has personal emails, and I know you guys all have Chippewa County emails. And it's really, really, really important to keep those two separate. The county email should only be used for county business. That's obvious, right? You don't need me standing up here to tell you guys that. And it's really simple, but it's really important, and sometimes it's easy to forget. So I'm saying it anyways. Don't use your county email for personal use. If you do use your county email for personal use, whatever you did in that email is a record. We have custody of it. It gets archived in our system. Someone's going to be able to go in and get that email. So just don't do it. That's the simplest way to avoid all that. Second point, don't do business on your personal email. That's even harder, I think, to remember sometimes. It's real simple to pull up your personal email and just shoot a message for whatever it might be. But don't do it. There's a couple reasons not to do it. One, if you do that and someone requests a record that, you know, potentially is implicated in those emails, IT might have to go in to your personal email and start trying to find it. IT does not want to do that. It's a train wreck. It's a mess. Don't make them do it. And you guys obviously don't want that either. So just keep it separate. And then second, you know, if you are just keeping it to the county for all the business, all that stuff gets archived. It's all on the correct retention schedule, and IT can go get it really, really fast. And so when people come and ask for these records, we can respond to them, and it's really, really simple. So again, you don't need me standing up here saying this, but it is really, really important. Social media can be a record. I'm not going to talk too much about it. I just put this up here, though, because this is the test that we use when we determine whether or not a website or social media is going to be considered a public record. It's real similar to the tests that we use when we're determining whether like an email on a personal account is going to be a public record. So you talk about the content, because the content matters. Who's it to? What's it talking about? These types of things. Just be careful on your personal social media accounts. That's really all you have to remember. I just threw this slide in there. That's an example of a situation with social media. It's an attorney general's opinion. Not going to go over it. You guys can read it on your own time. I'm sure you will. I'm not going to go into it. So. We covered all that. What's next important, and it seems mundane, not something like you have to think about, but you kind of do, is who can request a record. Ultimately, anyone can request a record. There are incredibly few exceptions to who can request. You do not have to be a Chippewa County resident to request a record from here. You do not have to be a resident of Wisconsin. You don't have to be a citizen of the United States. You get the record. The second item also is that the requester usually, I say usually, doesn't need to state the purpose for their request. There are instances in the records law where you would have to, but typically you don't. And the reason for that is because the motive is not relevant. We need to be transparent. What or why they're asking for it does not matter. They should be entitled to see it. Next, the requester typically, again, usually typically, can't be denied a record because they refuse to be identified. Again, identity is not relevant. We need to be transparent. And so identity, just like motive, doesn't matter. We're turning over that record if it's a valid record request. And then I just threw this in here as well, that the request usually doesn't need to be in writing. If for some reason something goes wrong and they were to turn around and sue the county for a failure to act for a records request, then it would have to be in writing. But it does not have to be in writing otherwise. I will say they're almost always in writing. It's just easier that way for them. And it's easier for us as well. We get very, very few oral records requests. The next topic, again, seems a little mundane, is whether or not the request is valid. I will say usually the answer is yes, the request is valid. Doesn't mean there's not exceptions, doesn't mean there's caveats, but usually the request itself is valid. Magic words or specific forms or a specific type of request is not required. You know, if someone needs a form from DHS that's form B2351 or whatever, they don't have to type up a records request that says I need form 2351. They can email and say, hey, I'm looking for a record that has this type of information in it. And if they reasonably describe that information, we turn that over. So it doesn't need to take a specific kind of form. A caveat to that is that it does have to be reasonably specific to time and subject matter. Someone can't come in with a records request and say, I want all the Chippewa County employees' emails. That is not specific to time, doesn't tell us when we're supposed to be looking for it, and it also doesn't give us any kind of subject matter criteria. So you need to be at least reasonably specific so that we don't have to guess, and you guys don't have to guess, what the requester is looking for. That's really kind of the only safeguard there. We do our best when I get records requests to work with people. If I need clarification, I'll reach out and say, hey, this is pretty broad. Can you give us a bit more information? So that we don't just have to deny based on it being broad. But, you know, sometimes the people want everything, and we can't give them everything. It needs to be reasonable. So overbreadth is a common issue. This is a list of a couple more common issues that we deal with. Only records that exist at the time of the request must be produced. Another way to say this is if we don't have it, we can't produce it. We're not going to make something appear out of thin air and give it to them just because they want it. If we don't have it, there's nothing we can do about that. Oftentimes, requesters get a bit frustrated about that. Oftentimes, they believe we have records that we don't. And so when they get the email back from individuals from the county that says, hey, we don't have any responsive records pursuant to your request, they're not happy about that, but there's nothing we can do about it. That kind of leads into the second point, and I bolded it because it's important and we deal with it a lot. It's that authority is not required to create new records. When someone comes and says, you know, I want this information, we don't have it, we don't have to go and then take all the information we can get and put it into a new one. For instance, an example is if someone came in and said, I want an Excel spreadsheet of all of the county cars and the mileage that Sam Renner has used since he's been employed here. Well, we have car logs and we have mileage logs that list all the different employees that have driven county cars. But I don't have my own personal Excel sheet anywhere in the county that lists all that information. The information's there, and you could figure it out if you got the mileage list. But we don't have an Excel list titled Sam Renner's mileage log or whatever. We don't have to go piece that together. We don't have to create that record and send it to them. In that situation, typically what I would do is send back, hey, listen, we don't have that record. With that being said, we do have the mileage records. And if they're fine with that, we can turn that over. Again, people a lot of times are not happy when we tell them we're not required to make new records and that we don't have them. Related to that, another reason people are sometimes not too thrilled about the open records law is that we don't have to answer questions. We don't have to just field questions by them. A lot of times individuals reach out with a request for information. You know, please provide the reasoning for contracting with company XYZ. Well, that's not a request for a record. That's a request for an explanation, or that's a request for information. That's not a record. We're not going to have a record that gives you that kind of explanation. And so we're not required under this law to turn around and create something to their satisfaction. That's not me standing here sitting here and saying, don't talk to your constituents when they have questions. I'm saying it doesn't apply to this law. When people have questions, of course, we answer them. To the best of our abilities, it does not apply to the open records law. All right, I told you this was going to be fast. This is my last one. I just want to leave you with a couple practice tips. Obviously, we live in a digital world, right? Email, social media, all that stuff. It's increasingly easier to make records when we're not thinking about it, when we don't mean to. We're constantly making records. You pick up your phone, you're making a record. You jump on email and start typing things, you're making a record. Just be careful about it. Keep it in the back of your mind. I don't expect you to think about it 24/7, but it's something to keep in your mind. Not everything needs to be in writing. Put a picture of a phone up there. People don't like talking on the phone anymore, and they should. We should talk on the phone more. It's quicker. A lot of times you can get information more expeditiously. And then we're not creating records when we don't need to be creating records. The more records we create, the more work this becomes, the more convoluted everything gets. So talk on the phone. It's still a capability on your guys' phones. Open records requests should be taken seriously. Records law is boring. It's mundane. I get it. But it is quite serious and it's important. Best case scenario, it helps us be transparent. The people that voted you into office know what you're doing. That's what we all want. Worst case scenario, it creates an incredible amount of problems for us because we're using it improperly. So it really is a two-sided beast here. Just use it properly, and it will serve what it's supposed to serve. We all want to be transparent. Can guarantee that's what everybody wants here. And then I think the best piece of advice that I could give is that when you get records requests, and you probably will, just reach out to my office. Reach out to me, Brady, Todd. You know, Chippewa County has lawyers. You should use them. We know what we're doing when these things come in. Any kind of questions that you have should be sent our way. Because ultimately, if it gets screwed up and someone sues us, we're going to have to deal with it anyways. So let's get out ahead of it, right? So reach out, maybe call, and then we can talk about it. So that's everything I got. If anyone has any questions, let me know.
Supervisor Gehring.
So I got two questions. First, is there such a thing as a harassing open records request?
Yeah. You know, it's not as common as you might think, but there are plenty of people that get pretty passionate about it and start firing off quite a few of them. Very, very, very rarely are the contents of the message harassing or in any way inappropriate.
I guess I'm looking at repeated request. It's not specific enough. They're looking for something to cause a problem with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cause for denial?
It depends. It's not a black and white thing. Depends on what they're saying, how often they say it. If you get something that raises your suspicion that it might rise to a level like that.
My second question is, and I don't know how this would really apply, but how long do I need to retain records?
So records retention is something completely separate. It depends on the type of record. Usually, fallback, if there's no specific ordinance for it, is 7 years. We have in our code of ordinances a list of records retention, so that's easily fine.
So if I'm no longer in this,
In Chapter 3,
if I'm no longer in this position,
they're going to be kept.
okay.
Supervisor Hennick.
Thank you, Chair. We recently, last Tuesday, had a gentleman come in saying he was getting misinformation, if I understand it correctly. I think this is a good thing for you, the legal department, to look into and determine if there's any kind of problem there, and then tell the chair and the co-chair.
Yeah, and
Please look at the video.
Yep, certainly. Yep, and I think what that individual was referencing was an active open records request. So I'm not going to comment on what's already being processed.
Just would like to make sure that the chair and co-chair are up to speed on whatever's going on,
Certainly.
because we're responsible to the public, bottom line.
Yep.
And, I trust them to do their job, but they have to have information too.
Yep, certainly.
All right, any additional questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank Thanks.
All right, that takes us on to number 9, agenda items for future consideration. Yeah, feel free to send myself, administrator, committee chairs, if it's specific to committee, just we'll get into a flow of how we get things on the agenda and move through. So don't ever hesitate to reach out with that. And we are on to agenda item number 10.
Erickson will make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Kelly seconds. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Drive safely.